I hit all the recording buttons and I did all that, but I didn't actually turn on the light. Turn the light on. Turn the light on, John. Turn the light on, John. Turn the light on. Do. We turn the light on, John. Turn the light on, John. Turn the light on. Go get it, buddy. My dog is trying so hard to play with me, but he's really, really dumb. And so and he's a little blind. So he goes and runs after the ball, but then he can't figure it out. He can't find out where the ball is, and then he finds the ball, and then he loses it. What a character. We want to put this on live chat. Whew. Probably the roughest start I've ever done at the beginning of any of these things. Holy cow. That is a tough start. Whew. How you guys all doing today, man? I'm having a good one. Good to see you, Eric. How you feeling, bud? How you feeling? You making it happen? Putting two and two together? I hope you are, man. I hope you are, man. Good to see you too, Major. Good to see you too, bud. I hope you're doing well out there too, man. I feel like I haven't actually talked to you in a little while, Major. Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful you guys are here, man. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful time. What a beautiful occasion, you know? Sometimes I get caught in my own head and I'm like, what am I even doing with this, right? I could just not do the live stream and go for a walk down the beach, right? Maybe flirt with a girl or something. No, I think it's important that we come together like this and we have these frank conversations about our fears and our lives and who we are and what we're doing and what is this all about? What is this all about, do you guys think? Today's video was really sort of affirming in that regard, that I really do think we are going to be faced the wealthy and the powerful and the people who are seizing power in our societies are kind of in denial, I think. I think there's a form of denialism that's happening that's coming across as intentionally stupid. And this denialism is going to really, really be the end of us, right? Really be the end of us. And we got to come together and really confront these guys in more serious ways. Yeah, thank you, Nova Scotia. Thank you. Lots of people have been telling me pretty immediately that imagine believing that you're doing good by talking the way that Peterson talks. Imagine what is this? He keeps talking about how it's a drain on the society or there's negatives and all this. I'm like, what are you talking about, bud? What are these negatives? What are these negatives? You know? And he keeps wanting to bring the conversation into well, what do we do about the kids? Won't someone please think about the children? It's okay, but we need to establish some pretty firm basics about okay, but if you're an adult, right? We all agree that we shouldn't give alcohol to children, right? Nobody's walking around being let's give alcohol to children, right? Nobody's serious or credible, right? But if we said adults can't drink alcohol, well, we've run that experiment. We see what happens. So, I just feel like we're not really having an honest discussion about the issue. And I feel like the reason we're not having an honest discussion about it is because the people who are transphobic and who don't want to actually go about it is they're being intentionally stupid, right? Because it's the last position they have left. Because if they're not intentionally stupid, if they actually use their brain intelligently and have a touch of empathy and actually think about it even reasonably for a moment, then their whole thing is going to fall apart and has fallen apart in my view. It's they don't have a credible position, right? They just have power now. And that's what's scary. Watch what the Supreme Court is going to do. Watch what the Supreme Court in America is going to do. While people like Peterson scream about trans issues and all this kind of stuff, just wait until, and it's going to drive a whole community of people, a community that Peterson denies exists. I know lots of trans people. I know lots of trans people. I can assure you that there is a community. I can assure you that trans people want to know who the other trans people around them are. Like, I can really assure you that this is the case, right? They do so out of a sense of safety more than anything. This idea that there is no trans community, I was like shocked. I re-listened to the interview and I was like, man, that's a shocking thing to say. But again, it's just like intentional stupidity. We have to be intentionally stupid these days because you can't be an adult anymore. Where are the girls to flirt with? I mean, presumably, oddity, they would be in like social environments, like the beach or any of this. But you just gotta like, bite the bullet and actually approach. But we've been told like not to do that now. Like we're in this like odd little paradox moment. Like, how does anybody actually meet anybody else? How does anybody actually date anymore? Where are you supposed to go? Who are you even supposed to talk to? Like, how's it going to work? And it's so funny because I see women complain about it too. They're like, I can't find any men who will come. Like, I've seen, yep, there are no casual social environments and spaces anymore. And the traditional ones, like I saw a video of a young lady who went to a bar. And she said, okay, like, this is how it's supposed to go, right? I'm supposed to go to a bar, and I sit at the bar, and then someone will approach me, right? And then she does so, and then nobody approaches her. And she's kind of heartbroken about it, and I can respect that. But we've created a society that is hostile to the entire idea of meeting new people. Like, we've created this entire environment of hostility around it. And I'm not like I'm not like the incel types where I try to place blame. I can sort of say, like, I think it's come about because there was a feminist movement that told young men, don't approach women, leave us alone, right? Like, we find you approaching us to be an affront, right? Or somehow threatening, right? Or not even somehow threatening, like just straight up threatening. And so what's the result of that? Right? Well, men don't do it anymore. And so what's the result of that? Nobody can actually get anything done because nobody's actually approaching anybody anymore. There's no one's willing to put themselves out there. No one's willing to take that risk and really hurt themselves. Right? Yep. Advancing on someone now makes you a predator or a slut. There's so much anxiety around sex now. I just listened to the Norm Macdonald's last stand-up special, which really was more like a podcast sort of thing like this. And he had this great joke. He was just like, of course I don't remember the setup or anything, so I'm the greatest storyteller ever. But he essentially says, like, why are we shaming sluts? Don't you think that that's going to make more women not want to be sluts? We should be slut praising. Yeah, we should be cheering for sluts. And we should stop shaming the sluts. Absolutely. I completely agree with this. Like, I completely agree with this. And it's the most bizarre, like, it's the number one thing that has convinced me, right? For like the Marxist analysis, like all that kind of stuff, so on and so forth, like all of that makes sense and is great. But the number one thing that has convinced me that our society is backwards and ridiculous is that we have, like, everybody wants women and men to find them attractive, to be promiscuous with them, right? Presumably everyone, asexuals excluded, right? Hello, my asexual friends. I hope you're all well out in the world and that everything's going well for you. Excluding the asexuals, everyone else kind of wants to get laid, right? Everyone else is hoping to have these sort of sexual encounters and to view them as positive aspects in their life. But the people who actually go and do it are denigrated. If this doesn't convince you that your society is completely ass backwards,
then there's nothing that's going to convince you. Literally, everyone thinks, boy, it would be nice. Like, every straight man is like, boy, it would be nice if some beautiful woman wore a beautiful outfit and engaged with me in a flirtatious way, leading towards some kind of sexual result. This is like literally every straight man wants this for themselves. But then if a woman does it, we shit on them and mock them and insult them and shame them. It's as backwards a thing that a person and a society can do, and we've completely done it. It's as stupid a thing that as can be done. And we're not teaching people about sex. We're not trying to create safe environments for people to engage in the basis of sex. And so what has it done? It's allowed the capitalists to come in and ruin the whole thing, as they always do, right? That we need to capitalize on this, right? And there has definitely been a capitalization of basic sex and basic communication surrounding these sorts of things. So I'm just, yeah, and we're bombarded with mixed messages. Absolutely. And yeah, I miss the 1970s, a whole different time. I mean, it is a different time, and the 70s had its own things going on, but like, it seems to me like the free love movement was probably pretty okay. Right? It seems to me like the free love movement was a moment when everybody was just like, okay, come on. Like, fuck this repressive bullshit. Now, I could go for another free love movement, right? I could go for another, like... You know, and I just wish there was a way... I just wish there was a way for people to signal to one another that they're interested. Right? Like something really easy, something really simple. I'm reminded of like a Star Trek Next Generation episode where Picard goes on vacation to some, like Risa or something like this. And so as a gift, Riker gives him this little totem statue thing. And Picard is very thankful. But then women keep approaching him and offering to engage in sexual activity with him, because Star Trek Next Generation was actually extremely sex positive. Something that new iterations of Star Trek are not, because we've lost the thread on what made Star Trek actually good. And Picard doesn't realize that that's what this totem signifies. That if you have the totem and you're showing it, you're saying to the people around you, please approach me and speak to me with the intention of moving forward in a sexual way. And I'm like, that would be useful, right? If we had like a bracelet or a ring or a necklace, an earring, right? A hat, a shirt, a color of shirt, anything. Just anything that we could all agree on. So that if you're wearing it and somebody approaches you, right, that's what's expected. And that's what, hair gel, anything, CR Strifey. Like, just as long as we all come together and we agree that that's the case. And if somebody acts like a toolbox while this is happening, right, then they're an asshole, very simply. Like, if you're wearing the bracelet and somebody approaches you and then you treat them like shit, everybody gets to treat you like shit, because, you know, You can't put on the bracelet and then be shocked when people approach you. Hey Kaya, how you doing? Feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. Just a reminder, right? August 1st, 4 p.m. Bloor and Bedford Road. We're having that protest. We're hopefully we're gonna shut down the street. Hopefully we're gonna get enough people out. It's gonna be good. And then tomorrow at 11 a.m. at City Hall, Toronto City Hall. There's a protest going on there as well. So, and again, I hope you guys can come. Transgender women get used by straight men and tossed aside once their friends show up. Yeah, no, absolutely that happens. Like, we're in such a we're in such a weird moment, you know, because not only has there been like a breakdown between relations and communication between just straight women and straight men, there's also been this upswell and surge of different types of sexuality, right? Like that go beyond a homosexuality or a heterosexuality, right? And nobody knows what to expect or what's acceptable or what's and it comes down to that classic sort of thing, right? People want to be in the in group, right? They don't want to put themselves out there, right? And transgender people are certainly putting themselves out there. Like, it's absolutely the case that, like, and in this society, if you put yourself out there, you become a target in this society. And this is absolutely the case, Eric, right? I honestly think the reason there are more trans people around is because they're no longer being suppressed. That's absolutely the case. I'm shocked it needs to be said. Like, that's how silly I think this is, right? That, like, there's this idea on the far right and in the dumb wine mom community and the Jordan Peterson crowds that, like, oh no, it's people like Elliot Page who are swaying young impressionable people with the power of the internet, right? Like, that's so dumb, I don't even know how to tell them how dumb it is, right? Like, nobody ever is going to be like, oh, I think I'm actually a girl because Elliot Page became, like, transitioned to a man. Like, it's never going to be that way, ever. It's always going to be the case. Like, the best case scenario for this argument is that someone who is a trans person will look at someone like Elliot Page and think to themselves, is that something that's going on with me as well? And then investigate it and discover that that's the case and feel safe to admit it. Because literally, like, 50 years ago, we were murdering these people. Like, I don't know, like, I remember I did a video maybe a year ago now because Joe Rogan had on his podcast just a total transphobe idiot. Like, and a real idiot. Like not like a scientist who is bringing up, like, well, in terms of sports, but, like, straight up, like, her entire premise was there didn't used to be this many trans people around, and now there seems to be a lot. I blame the internet, right? When what's obviously happening is that the homosexual community pushed through, right? She wasn't Asian. She was extremely white. Like Karen. Like, she was the definition of Karen. And I just don't remember her name. The homosexual community pushed through into the society, right? You had television shows like Will and Grace, like Let's Be Straight, or in this case gay, I guess. I know for myself and my community, like my rural Manitoban community, a show like Will and Grace was actually very effective. It was very effective in regards to helping people overcome their bigotry and their suspicion of homosexuals in the community. I think that Will and Grace was absolutely a turning point for a lot of people, myself included, really. And it was a moment when we all, like, we saw these people and we just went, oh, these people are harmless. Like, they're like, what's the threat? It's just a moral panic is what it is. And so that got cracked open, right? And then through the crack that was created came the transgender community who walked through and said, okay, but we're here too, right? And you have shows like, I think, Drew Paul's Drag Race, and there are others that are helping people with this kind of situation in this I know Milo is right here, and he's just begging for attention. He's been begging for attention for a while. Oh, okay. I won't pick you up. Jeez. You're being a fussy butt right now, buddy. I'm having a serious conversation about transgender issues, and you're just being a fussy, weird little pug. Did you know that? You're being a fussy, weird little pug right now. A fussy, weird little pug. And you don't want to come up and say hi to anybody, and you're being weird and nippy. Honestly, all he wants is to lick my face. That's really what he wants. I know. So I'm sure that the mic is picking up Milo right now. Oh, he's just going nuts. So I'm gonna give him lots of pets. Well, I was thinking of someone else. Well, Joe Rogan has platformed lots of transphobes, right? And doesn't platform trans rights activists. So there's a lot of examples in Joe Rogan's platform, right? This is the reason why I stopped paying attention and stopped listening to Joe Rogan. I was like, oh, his whole premise is that he the way to stop bad speech is with good speech, right? And that it's okay to platform literal neo-Nazis, which he has done, because you platform the other side, and then the good speech beats the bad speech, right? That's the whole premise. Well, he's platformed many overt, explicit transphobes, people who can only be described as transphobic, because they're too stupid to be called anything else, and has never once platformed a serious trans right activist, a trans person, right? And anybody within the trans community. And there are plenty of people. There are plenty of people that he could talk to, right? It would be easy to find them, right? So it's the reason why I stopped paying attention to Joe Rogan, because I got no patience for that kind of bullshit. It's like, you go off and be your frat dude, bud, right? Yeah, I think that's right. RuPaul had to be forced to move on with the times with the transgender contestants. Yeah. Oh, he's a drug addict too. Tinker with the hot fire. What? If it's weed, if you're gonna tell me it's weed, I'm gonna be like, I don't know. What are you gonna do, right? Have you seen the right-wing meme where the Christian men is being bullied by the trans person with the speakerphone? Look, I don't know how to say this and have it be accepted by white Christian men. The history of the relationship between white Christians and transgender people is white Christians murdering transgender people. That's the history of it. That's happened within living memory. That's not a secret. It is extremely the history of what white Christian men do to transgender people in the society. So, if a trans person has a speakerphone, and I haven't seen this video, but I assume that this is how it goes. If a trans person has a speakerphone and is bullying the white Christian man, it is because they are literally fighting for their life. That's the position that they are taking. That if the trans person is literally, the stakes for them is that they are fighting for their very existence, for their very survival. That is the position that they are taking. That is the stakes that they are at. And if you, as the white Christian man, are scoffing at that, then you are enormously the problem. You are enormously the problem. You're disrespectful and disgusting, and you should be screamed at. Constantly, forever. Everyone should scream at you constantly until you shut your mouth and sit down. The history of the relationship between white Christian men and trans people is white Christian men slaughtering, lynching, and murdering trans people. That is the history. And if you don't accept it, then shut the fuck up, you clueless loser. I just one day I might try to make that sound nice for these losers, but I think they're too stupid and intentionally stupid and murderous, right? They're too stupid and murderous to realize that when they come over to trans people and start questioning or badgering them, right? Even if they think they're being nice about it, what they are doing is saying to the transgender person, give me an excuse to murder you. That's what they're saying. They're not going towards them and being like, hey, I don't understand this kind of trans situation. Can you help me try to understand it? They're saying to them, give me a reason to murder you. That's the nature of the relationship. That's the core of the relationship. And it seems like no one wants to say it. It seems like no one wants to actually go on any of these platforms. No one wants to say this to Jordan Peterson. No one wants to say this to Ben Shapiro. No one wants to say this to Joe Rogan. No one wants to be the one to say, hey, you know that white men like murder transgender people for being transgender, right? Like you get this, right? Like you understand this? Because if you don't understand that, then I don't think you can talk about the subject. Why are you talking about it? Like, that's the most embarrassing part about what's happening in the society today, is that, like, there's this glaring, obvious thing that definitely exists, and we just don't talk about it. So a bunch of idiot frat boy losers shoot their mouth off, pretending as though the relationship isn't, that they're not getting their heads together, being like, how do we convince people to let us keep killing transgender people? That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing Joe Rogan, Shapiro, Peterson all getting their heads in the game and being like, how do we get back to murdering these people? That's what I'm seeing. I don't know why we shouldn't just explicitly say it constantly. Like, it's obviously what's happening. You get dogpiled the moment you make a comment that even remotely slights white men won't fly on Jerry. Like, yeah. Like, big fucking surprise, right? Like, especially now, in my view. Like, Rogan's gone way farther to the right. Like, since the Spotify deal, when he moved down to Texas, he's way farther to the right. Well, yeah, we are all drug addicts. Coffee, sugar, prescription drugs. Let's not stigmatize people who use drugs. I remember when I was younger, I got really after people for smoking cigarettes. And now I'm older, like I'm almost 40. And I'm like, somebody tells me that they're a smoker or something, and then maybe they'll apologize or something. And I'm just like, whatever. And my go-to when I was younger was always like, you know, you're losing years off your life. Well, I used to work in funeral services. I've seen those years. You're not missing much, honestly. Yeah. Well, and again, I don't know what drug you're talking about. Like, is it weed? Because, like, I couldn't care less. The, uh-oh. Fight. How you doing, Kaya? How you doing? Kaya, is it K-A or Kai-A? I'm looking at your name, and I know you've told me before, and I'm so embarrassed that I don't remember. How you doing out there today, dude? How's it going for you? How's it going? Are things happening for you? Kaya? Perfect. It's a crazy time. It's a crazy time. No, I think I know what Kaya's talking about, Tinker. Like, it's drug use can get stigmatized pretty easy, right? Kaya, like that little girl Sasha saved in Attack on Titan. I cannot watch Attack on Titan, dude. I watched like the first 13 episodes of it, and by the end of it, I was just like, I felt drained. I felt like I was like, I had done battle. like Attack on Titan is like actual horror, you know? Like, I don't really like much horror because I find horror is quite cheap most of the time. Always like jump scares, highly manipulative, usually quite predictable. Not really that interesting. But Attack on Titan, like, because the horror comes from the basic premise itself, right? And for those of you who don't know, Attack on Titan, the basic premise is that there are these, it's a medieval society, so they have like swords and stuff and like steam engine technology, and there are titans walking around in the world, like gigantic, like 50-foot tall monsters that eat humans. And humanity has retreated into these giant cities to protect themselves with walls. But as the story goes on, those walls get breached by these titans. And the show does not back off at all of how terrifying and gruesome it would be to be prey, to be hunted. Attack on Titan was inspired by Claymore. Claymore did it better. Here we go. We got some anime nerds. Perfect. Attack on Titan was inspired by Claymore. Claymore did it better. Hot tip. I don't know if I would want to see that premise done better. Like, but I believe it. Like, I believe it. It's very rare that something just manifests. Like, everything is inspired by something, right? It's always been the case that. No, I think I'm good. Like, I think I'm good, dude. I don't need to. I don't need to get more fucked up in my spare time. Claymore isn't as dark. Actual relationships, etc. Hey, okay, let's not fight in the chat, okay? Let's not fight in the chat. And it's oh my goodness, Milo. Everybody can hear you whining. Did you know that? Everybody can hear you whining. Everybody can hear you whining, buddy. Are you gonna come and get some pets? I feel like we've hit kind of a sensitive point. Like, drug use. Don't do drugs, kids. That goes for alcohol. Oh man, I'm screwed, Tinker. If when you say don't do drugs, you also say alcohol. Yeah, bud. Oh, John, the interview that you were referencing with JP, was it the Kyle Kalinske interview? Yes, correct. Kyle Kalinske did a pretty big interview with Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson said a lot of really dumb stuff. Like, a lot of stuff that's so dumb I can't believe that it's not intentional. Like, it's... I mean, I think Anemone's kind of hitting it on the head, right? Like, we're all coping, right? We are all coping, and unabashedly, like, drugs are a coping mechanism. There's no other way to say it, and like, it's not as easy as simply saying, don't do drugs, like, especially for like people who live in very difficult situations or with pain, right? And like, if you're I'm not even in dire straits. Like, I'm not homeless or anything. But if I was homeless, yeah, I would be trying to get some drugs. For sure. For sure I would. Milo, dude. You're being very, very, very distracting right now, bud. Like, it's beyond distracting. Come on up. Especially because we're trying to have a serious conversation about drugs here, dude. Right? The best drug of all. Love. Right? All you need is love. Do, 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 do. All you need is love. Compton, you're coming in early. We're going to do that at 7 o'clock, okay? All you need is love. Love. Oh, yeah, the opioid crisis is like a whole other thing, right? It's like a whole other thing. And I do wonder about this. Like, I haven't I haven't seen anything that's like, yeah, I mean, stay away from opioids if you can, for sure. I'm with you on this. Like, I mean, some of these opioids are literally heroin. Like, they're just like, they're derived from heroin, right? Instead of just saying don't do drugs, we actually deal with the root problem. See places like Amsterdam, who did those things and have the lowest crime rate in the world. I know you meant Amsterdam, dude, but you wrote Hamsterdam, and yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought. Hamsterdam, Kingdom of the Hamsters. It's like the most adorable thing. And I mean, don't do drugs. Like, at some point you got to bite the bullet. Like, it's not as clean as all of this. All right. We're diving into like a whole drug conversation while simultaneously talking about the hamster kingdom. I've never been... well, if I get a hamster, its enclosure will be named Amsterdam. That's for sure now. Yeah. Harm reduction works. Abstinence doesn't. Yeah, that's for sure. And, like, when it comes to drug use, like, I'm basically... Like, follow the evidence, right? It's decriminalization 100%, right? Criminalizing drugs of any sort is obviously a massive problem. Like, if people get stuck in the cycle of drug use, well, they're certainly not going to seek help if seeking help gets them a prison sentence, right? Look at what Portugal did, exactly. Portugal was in a real nightmare situation. And they're not the only place, right? There have been a lot of places, but they were in, like, the real nightmare situation where, like, people were having overdoses in public spaces, like on children's playground structures and things like this. And so they took the drastic measure, right? Out of desperation more than anything, if you ask me. They literally didn't know what else to do, right? They literally were out of ideas and were actually interested in resolving this issue. And so they just decriminalized everything. And it worked. It completely worked. It resolved the issue. So it's... safe supply is where we need to get to. Absolutely. Absolutely. I read ham reduction instead of harm reduction because of the kingdom of the hamsters. Overdose is extremely down because of ham reduction. Vegetarianism works, everybody. Vegetarianism works. Make sure we get... Oh my goodness, the Jews were right all along. We got to get pork out of this diet. The Muslims, they're right, you guys. We got to get pork out of the diet, right? We got to get this ham reduction down. We got to reduce this ham, right? Or else we'll have a bunch of fat little hamsters. I love that we've called them hamsters. Because, like, that implies that if they were big, they would just be hams, I guess? So they're like pigs, but they're little? John, do you know why pork is haram? I know that in... I'm not actually sure about why it is in Islam, but in Judaism, it was very, very just... It was strictly a health and safety issue. Like, read Leviticus. If you read Leviticus, like, they're not talking about, like, do not eat pork because pork is God's chosen food, or pigs are a sacred creature, or any of that kind of stuff. They're literally like, yeah, if you eat ham, if you eat pork, you die, right? Like, it kills you. They weren't able to ensure its safety the way that we have at the moment, right? And well, it's less that they copied Judaism and more that, like, the Muslim faith, and Muslims are very upfront about this, it's within the Abrahamic tradition, that they consider it like a sequel in the trilogy, right? That, like, you have the Old Testament, then you have the New Testament, and then you have the Quran. And they actually consider all of this to be the same, right? And so that means that Muslims and Christians and Jews actually have a lot in common with one another, right? They really, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that they copied it, but what I'm saying is that it makes sense that they would do so, right? As a continuation of the faith, that it's part of the Abrahamic tradition, it's part of the Abrahamic religion, that like Muslims, it's very interesting because like Muslims don't really view themselves as separate from Christianity in the way that Christians view themselves as separate from Muslims, right? Like clearly there are distinctions, clearly there are separations, clearly there are differences, but I think Muslims see themselves within an umbrella of Abrahamic faith, whereas Christianity does not, right? They reject Islam, and Christianity did not prohibit pork. It was something that was refuted in the New Testament. Yeah, there's a whole passage in the New Testament where Peter, I think it was Peter, has like a vision from Christ where they're allowed to eat pork now. And I think it really just comes down to like the Romans figured out how to prepare pork properly so it didn't kill people, right? It wasn't the major health and safety issue, right? And that preparation style probably didn't transition to Islam. I don't get you, bud. Why are you losing your mind right now? My little guy is like losing his brain, guys. Like he's gotten himself stuck under a chair. He's literally under a chair. Anyway, I'd like to point these numbers out that we're seeing right in front of us. What Americans thought of the civil rights movement in 1964, right? 63% said they pushed too fast. 58% said most were violent. 58% said they hurt their own cause. This is in 1964. And I think it's important for us to take a look at these kinds of numbers and take a look at this kind of stuff, because as other rights movements and as other civil rights movements begin to pick up steam, we're going to see similar things. Why do you say that Christianity rejected the No. I didn't say that Christianity rejected the Abrahamic religion. I said that Christianity rejects the Muslims. That's the difference. Where like the Muslim faith sees a continuity, the Christians don't. That's what I mean. Like the Christians still view themselves as an Abrahamic religion. They just think the Muslims are not part of that, for the most part. Like, in my experience, Muslims seem to be more accepting of Christians than Christians are of Muslims. But, I mean, given this configuration of Christianity that we're seeing today, like, modern-day Christians are no Christians that any, like, who are these Christians? Like, these non-existent, sort of terrible, they don't even read their own book. That's the thing that kills me the most about the conversation with Christianity, guys. Like, these guys, they don't even read their own book. Like, they don't care. They don't care to read it. They don't care to know anything about it. They don't actually give a shit about this Jesus guy. They don't care, right? They don't know anything he said. They don't, they straight up don't. Right-wing Christians equal Taliban. Yeah, I've been seeing that comparison, right? It's a pretty easy comparison to draw. Like, and I mean, given what we're seeing happen in the United States, it's not difficult to square that circle, right? And the like, I feel like Christianity is due for a big reformation, like a big old reformation. But capitalism, like everything, has completely poisoned it. Right? The poison pill is capital. And, like, everyone is completely incentivized to just be a greedy psychopath. And that includes these Christians. And, like, to the point where they're creating, like, the prosperity gospel. which is straight up heresy. Like, it's straight up like I don't even consider myself a Christian any longer, and I know that, like, yeah, like there is no way that Christ's teachings can be used to, like, justify capitalism. That capitalism exists in the face of Christianity, right? Like, it's an ideology that says to Christianity, get fucked completely. That's why I say all the time, like the modern conservative man is a collection of paradoxical positions, right? They have to be. They have to be. And there's this constant struggle within conservative men where they're constantly struggling with how to be a good Christian, how to be a good person, and how to be a good capitalist. And you can't be all three. You can't be all three. At best, you can be two of them, right? But you don't get to be all three. And that contradiction, the inherent contradictions that exist between humanity, capitalism, and Christianity, have created like a completely schizophrenic group of people who don't know how to act or how to do or how to be, right? John, want to read an article where a Christian who wrote an article in a conservative religious news site where how Christ was a socialist? Yeah, Christ was kind of a socialist communist. Are you kidding? Christ was 100% a communist. Like 100%. You can't read the Bible and walk away with any other idea. Like, he's certainly not a capitalist. And he's certainly not a statist by any stretch of the imagination. Like, for God's sakes, like, Christ takes a whip and whips marketers, basically, right? And whips people who are trying to turn the temple into a market system. Like, what I don't understand what how it could be, how you could possibly even attempt to create any other. The guy was walking around saying, sell your possessions, give your money to the poor, right? Like, there's no alternative view. Like, maybe you don't want to call him a socialist or a communist because of your bias, right? And I don't mean your bias, I'm just using the royal your. But because of a bias, perhaps somebody wouldn't want to call him a communist or a socialist, but there's absolutely no way that he could ever be thought of as a capitalist, right? It's the capitalists that kill him, right? The reason why Christ is killed, ultimately, is that he was walking around the society, preaching and doing this stuff. He walks into a temple, and it's forbidden to sell items the way that these guys were selling items in the temple. So Christ takes a whip and turns over their tables and chases them out because they're in violation of the law, right? They're in violation of the law. Like, what Christ did was the right thing to do. That if your position is, well, he should have gone and gotten the authorities. Well, what do you think the authorities would have done? They would have taken a whip and they would have chased these guys out of the temple because that's the thing to have done. And so Christ is upholding the very law of the land. But the system of capital has corrupted things so dramatically that this allows the capitalists to go grab Christ, bring him to Pontius Pilate, who is the representative of the state, right? The Roman state, of course, is like a dominating military dictatorship, an occupying force within this area. They say, we want to crucify this guy, Christ. Pontius Pilate is like, he's done nothing wrong, but I can't afford another uprising. It would threaten my position, right? My position of authority. And so I wash my hands of it. I'm sure you're similar. You've heard familiar things where people wash their hands. I wash my hands of this, right? So he makes no judgment or edict on it. And so without any trial or without any, like, anything, they go and they crucify this guy. right? That's the story of Christ in a nutshell. Like, and Christians bend over backwards and work overtime to forget that this is the case. That a man like Christ, you can see the Christ story at play in today's society. There are figures who are going through the Christ narrative right now. People like Julian Assange are going through the Christ narrative right now. People, you have that kid, I forget his name all of a sudden, but like Dale something, where he outed the military drone program and showed that 90% of the time drones don't kill their intended targets and just kill civilians, right? And that kid's doing 8 years in prison for it, or 4 years in prison for it, right? Like, anybody who is standing up against the state, Daniel Hale, that's the name, thank you, Ligandese, a complete hero, in my view. Anybody who stands up against the state and is punished for it is following the Christ narrative. And it can't be read any other way. Like, this is why I say these modern day Christians are simply not interested in reading their own book. They don't care. Like, they don't care. They don't care what the book says. And you don't need to, like, study it. Like, this is the thing that kills me the most, right? Like, especially people who are not Christians, right? They think that, like, oh god, this is going to be a big, like, a huge study, and like we're going to have to do like book clubs and like go to church and Sunday school and all this kind of stuff. Literally, no. You literally can sit down and in an evening crack out one of the Gospels. You don't even need to read all of them, right? Literally one of them. Pick your favorite and just read it. And it's gonna take you 3 hours, maybe, like 2 hours, 3 hours. You're gonna read it, and at the end of it, you're gonna be like, oh, these Christians are all universally, no exceptions, frauds. All of them. And it's absolutely the truth. All of these Christians, including your like liberal churches, including any ones that you're sitting there being like, oh, but they're so nice, or oh, who could they be harming? They're all complete frauds, all of them, because they have sacrificed the integrity of their own Christ for their wallets. Just straight up, they have become the very thing that Christ would pull the whip out and work against. Like, and it's without exception. Like, there is no such thing as a just Christian. It doesn't exist. Not in this society. The New Testament is a lot easier to read than the Old Testament, and my theory is because it is reading using Greek philosophy, which is integrated into our society, while the Old Testament is foreign to us, comes from the Middle East. I feel like the New Testament is a little bit easier, simply because each book is usually like one thing. Like I shouldn't say most, but a lot of the books of the Old Testament are like an amalgamation. Like Genesis is like the absolute case in point for this. Like Genesis is not a single story. It is an amalgamation of many stories. And Jews, like the Abrahamic religions, they make the argument that this is a singular narrative, that it's the narrative of human civilization, right? Like, that's the argument that they make. But the truth is that it's like a series of myths and legends and history. There's history in it. But it's all kind of jammed together. And it's not treated... like they don't care to make a distinction between fact and fiction. I think this is a tough thing for people to accept about religious texts generally, which is that the authors, and certainly the people who are involved in the religion throughout history, don't care about the distinction between like a secular reality and a religious reality, right? That the imagination and the magic of it all is as valid as like the scientific proofs, and that's something of a truism. There have been, like Augustus said, that if scientific fact, I don't think he used the word scientific, but if reality, if proof, if evidence is given that contravails dogma, then the dogma must be changed. It's one of his more famous statements, because he understood that oftentimes, like religious text and religious interpretation and the magic of it all, right? Is there to facilitate emotional truths, things that are not 100%. Like emotional truths and emotional reality is not something that you can like measure, you know, and the process of creating religious texts and religious language and religious stories is the process of attempting to articulate things that are very difficult to articulate, and it's an ongoing, constant unfolding experience of, and I make the argument that the Christian faiths, the Abrahamic faiths are not the best ones to do this. That they have their moments for sure. Ecclesiastes is a really good example of this. Like Ecclesiastes, in my view, should be like everybody should read that. Like I don't care what your position is at all. Like I don't care if you're an atheist, an agnostic, like a secularist, a Muslim, a Jew, a Buddhist, a Zionist, anything. I don't care. Everyone should read Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is 100% just like straight up. What is this place? Why are we here? What is this for? And just like no nonsense, no bullshit. Like we're I'm not writing this for any other reason but to opine on this very concept. George Michael was a socialist. How could George Michael not be a socialist, right? Have you ever watched Jesus Christ Superstar? Jesus Christ Superstar. Yeah. I had a real big Andrew Lloyd Webber phase. I was huge into Phantom of the Opera. Nighttime sharpens, heightens each sensation. Open up your mind. Yeah, I could like do the whole thing. And Jesus Christ Superstar, it was fun. That's all. Some people have described it as blasphemous, but I gotta be straight up with you. I'm like, no. I feel like I think he did it. He told the story. It was a good time. There's a toe tapping kind of thing. I don't think he bullshitted anybody, right? Like, that's what's so kind of funny about Jesus Christ Superstar, because you think about like the films and art that has been made in the modern era about Christ. This is sort of what's so odd about modern day Christianity, is that they're completely disinterested in telling the story of Christ. Like, they could, over and over again they could. And they don't seem to be actually that interested in doing it. Leaving it to like VeggieTales, basically. And even VeggieTales doesn't actually tell the story of Christ. So it's like, what do you end up with? You end up with like Jesus Christ Superstar. You end up with Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, right? Which, I gotta be straight with you, man. Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ was gore porn. That's what it was. It literally was just like 2 hours of watching somebody get completely tortured. I don't think it didn't it didn't move the bar. It didn't like become part of any kind of canonical anything. It literally was like if it wasn't for the fact that it was supposed to be a story told about like Christ, Jesus Christ, it was just like a dude, right? And it was like called Passion of the Gym, right? Everybody would be like it's I find it to be a highly offensive film, frankly. Which Christ movie do you like? There was an old, like 1980s version of the story of Christ that was always floating around when I was a kid. That kind of just told the story fairly straightforwardly. Like it wasn't trying to make a point or anything. And Life of Brian, yeah, there's a good one. Oh, there was also oh god, there was one where Willem Dafoe played Christ. I've never actually seen that one. Now that I mention it, isn't that funny? And Ebony, you really want to talk about George Michael, eh? You're just like forget this Christ guy. We should talk about more important people in today's era. We should talk about George Michael. Well, before we talk about George Michael, there's Tenia in chat, so I'm expecting to see 10 numbers. What do we got? Here we go. Today's number. What do we got? So we already had some people throwing up the numbers. Put your numbers back in. I saw a 6. 6, goddammit! I'm with you, Compton. Actually, no, I'm still on the 7. Until I actually hit this 7, man. I'm still on the 7. Let's go. Just watch. Now that I said that, it's going to be the 6. For sure. But we're doing it. Here we go. We got a 9, we got an 8, we got a 6. Today's number is... I always miss it by 1, dude. It's always like a little off. We got Ligandes, we got DM. You know what, Nova Scotia? You did a 4. You can have it too. Why not? Right? Come on in. May the energy of David Lynch carry with you guys. We got Ligandes, we got DM. So glad you guys are all in here. Anemone wants to talk about George Michael. George Michael. Here we go. I don't know why we're talking about George Michael. Right? George Michael. And remember, no, 8 is not double 3. 3 is half of 8. That's how it is. This personal life. Is this gonna actually talk about any of that? Oh well, Kea. Getting quite serious in the chat. During the Faith tour. Oh, I see what you're saying. When I Want Your Sex reached the US charts, refused to say the song's title, referring it only as the new single by George Michael. Oh well. Isn't that funny? I wonder if they'll actually, like, is there even a Wikipedia segment for his, like, where are you finding... Oh, politics. It's gotta be politics. Here we go. To call us Thatcherite was so simplistic. Basically saying that if you got a deep enough tan and made a bit of money, you've got to be a Thatcherite. Michael's father was a communist. Here you go. At the age of 15, Michael joined the Young Communist League under his Greek name. During the time of Margaret Thatcher as the Conservative Prime Minister of the United Kingdom throughout the 80s, Michael voted Labour. In September 1984, Wham performed at a benefit concert at London's Royal Festival Hall for striking UK miners. In 2000, he joined Melissa Etheridge, Garth Brooks, one of the unsung country heroes, Garth Brooks, Queen Latifah, the Pet Shop Boys, and Katie Lang to perform in Washington as part of Equality Rocks, a concert to benefit the Human Rights Campaign, an American LGBT rights group. His 2002 single, Shoot the Dog, was critical of the friendly relations between the US and UK governments, in particular the relation between Tony Blair and W. Bush, with their involvement in the War on Terror, for sure. Michael voiced his concern about the lack of public consultation in the UK regarding the war on terror. Yeah. On an issue as enormous as the possible bombing of Iraq, how can you represent us when you haven't asked us what we think? Yeah. In 2006, he performed a free concert for NHS nurses in London. In 2007, he sent the $1.45 million piano that John Lennon used to write Imagine around the United States on a peace tour. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Hey man, we gotta know everything about everybody, right? George Michael, trying to use his clout to move the bar even a little bit, right? Even a little bit. I don't know why we're talking about George Michael, but we are. All right. I liked this article. This comes out of the Daily Beast. Shockingly, out of the Daily Beast, if you ask me. Hit the snooze button if you want to save the planet. Seriously, science shows that fewer hours spent working and more hours spent resting could be one of the best ways to reduce your carbon footprint. Jason Porter never meant to go viral on Twitter. Porter, an environmental historian at Northwestern University, was thinking about an in-class conversation he'd had with some of his students when he tweeted on March 1st, 2022. I'm still stuck on this idea, investing in more sleep for climate justice. The tweet quickly exploded, resonating with hundreds of thousands of users, including climate advocates, sleep enthusiasts, and burnt-out millennial types. But it also raised a huge question. Can sleeping more really help combat climate change? The answer, according to experts, is yes, with a few qualifications. The idea of sleeping in to save the planet is enticing, Porter told the Daily Beast, partially because it's a reflection of a lot of privilege. Most of us would love to catch some extra Z's, but simply snoozing your alarm won't do much to slash carbon emissions. What's more, not everyone has the time, resources, or economic security to sleep more at night without widespread systemic change. That's why, at its heart, this is really a question of anti-capitalism, Porter said. The trouble is, we live in a society, and for most of us in the global north, that society happens to be hyper-capitalistic. Growth is very much ingrained in capitalism. Melina Bucks, an environmental sociologist at the University of Leeds in England, told the Daily Beast. It's an insidious truth reflected in business speak mantras like growth mindset and rise and grind, which glorify constant work as a virtue. However, from a climate perspective, humanity's current workload is downright destructive. It takes a lot of carbon to make stuff we purchase on a daily basis, like clothes, electronics, and various plastics. Industry alone accounts for over a fifth of global greenhouse gas emissions, according to the EPA. That slice balloons up to 40% when combined with emissions produced from powering office buildings and commuting to work. In most developed countries, work time hasn't really decreased since the 1980s, despite very large improvements in productivity. Jonas Nassen, a sustainability researcher at Chalmers University in Sweden, told the Daily Beast, but there are some groups working to counteract this paradox, and their ideas are starting to gain a foothold in the mainstream. Degrowth is a movement based on the theory that perpetual growth is ultimately sustainable, both from an economic perspective and an environmental one. Its proponents advocate scaling back the sheer amount of stuff industrial nations produce and moving towards a sustainable, circular economy. It's important to emphasize that degrowth is not a recession or a forced shrinking of economies, but an intentional shift. Neera Singh, an environmental economist at the University of Toronto in Canada, told the Daily Beast. While a sudden pivot to degrowth policies probably isn't in the cards for most wealthy nations, some are taking a few tentative steps towards reducing people's workload. In June, over 3,300 workers across 70-plus companies in the UK began participating in a pilot program of a 30-hour, 4-day work week. The 6th-month trial, organized by the not-for-profit 4-Day Week campaign, aims to improve their overall well-being by providing extra time to rest and recover without reducing pay. The goal, according to campaign director Joe Ryle, is less stress, less burnout, less overwork. And those hours off work might not just benefit human health, they could be good for the planet as well. Moving to a 4-day week is a relatively quick way of bringing down emissions, Ryle told the Daily Beast. The science seems to bear this out, at least in highly industrialized nations. For example, one of NASA's studies of Swedish households from 2015 found that every 1% reduction in working time reduced carbon emissions across the country by 0.8%. Another 212 study suggested that scaling back work hours by 10% in industrial countries could reduce their carbon footprint by over 14% annually. Most of those reductions come from energy saved on office building lighting, air conditioning, computer usage, and commuting. And in early 2020, COVID lockdowns caused a 5.4% drop in global carbon dioxide emissions. That number quickly rebounded as restrictions lifted later in the year. So, it seems that in general, less time at work equals lower emissions. But experts caution how people spend their personal time matters too. Activities that are more expensive also tend to be more environmentally costly. Travel, particularly by plane, is an especially carbon-intensive undertaking. So are consumption-driven activities, like shopping. Whereas reading a book, having a conversation, or going for a walk are obvious low emitters, said Nassen, it turns out that sleeping might just be the greenest activity of all. A 2019 study of nearly 5,000 households in Austria found that sleeping and generally vegging out was the least carbon-intensive way for a person to spend their free time. In contrast, going out to eat at a local restaurant emitted nearly 20 times as much carbon dioxide. However, even sleep isn't necessarily carbon neutral. In the summer and wintertime, for instance, folks often leave air conditionings or heaters running all night in order to stay comfortable, and sleeping with a noisemaker or other plugged-in device could consume extra nocturnal energy. Ultimately, Porter thinks that this sort of personal responsibility narrative by itself is insufficient in the fight against climate change. Sleep is an environmental justice issue, he said. There are so many different things, both class and race, that disproportionately affect how people of color sleep. To reduce emissions in a meaningful way and give everyone adequate time to rest, developed nations need to address larger, more structural issues, like unrestricted industrial growth and socioeconomic inequities. Bucks believes that our current pandemic-altered economic landscape might offer an opportunity to allow some degrowth practices to take root naturally, albeit in a less intentional way than many degrowth advocates would like. Some economists think that this could be part of an obvious sort of era where we see very low growth rates anyway, and where policymakers have to adjust to this very new context, she said. She sees the growing interest in programs like the 4-day week campaign as a sign that this shift has already begun. For his part, Ryle hopes that 4-day weeks' impact will ripple into environmental justice circles too. We need to be taken much more seriously by the climate movement, he said. Nassen sees implementing shorter work weeks and encouraging people to get more rest as a far easier sell than many other sweeping climate policies. While many pro-environmental lifestyle changes are purely sacrifices, this is a bit of both, he said. You'll sacrifice a bit of consumption, but you'll get more time for your recovery or to do things that matter to you. As much as we might wish it could, more hours spent dozing off won't magically solve climate change, but restructuring the work week to allow for more rest could be a significant step towards a sustainable future, one where we can all sleep just a little easier. Yeah. What have I been saying the whole time? Huh? What have I been saying the whole time? Seems like a good time to crack it out. Let's do it. Let's do it. I got my guitar back here. Yep. Whoop. Yep. What have I been saying the whole time, guys? Right? That it is simple. That it's a lot easier than we're making it. Right? We literally, and now we're seeing more and more evidence. Right? How many times do I got to sing this song? And how many times do we have to go over it? That, like, just stop. question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm old? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point of feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes to sweep away my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, so everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? When everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. Antarctica is covered in ice. Antarctica is covered in I totally agree with you here, Anemone. Like, the personal responsibility BS is just another grift, right? It's just another grift. Like, we're seeing how the structure of the death cult is attempting to defend itself. And defense number one, right, was, oh, well, the science isn't in, right? Oh, you know, it could be. Maybe, right? So gaslighting, right? And then defense number two, right? Oh, yeah, it is. Absolutely it is. But we can stop it if you do something about it. So another form of gaslighting, right? You're the problem, right? But they acknowledged that it was real, right? And then And the next one is literally just, well, what are you going to do about it? That is literally where it's going to go. They're just going to go, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, especially in the United States. It's going to be different across Europe and Canada. But in the United States, they're straight up just going to say, like, well, what are you going to do about it? We don't give a fuck. Cry. Just go die. Like, we don't care. Get fucked. Hard to imagine why population rates are stopping, right? Wow, why are things slowing down? Yep. Personal responsibility is meant to make you feel like it's your fault and distract you from the real players. That's exactly what it's for. It's called gaslighting, right? That, oh no, I'm not the evil dick, right? You're the crazy one, right? There's something wrong with you. Like, that's how gaslighting works. Like, you deflect back on the accuser, right? And you can see that this gaslighting thing, like, Jordan Peterson is an expert at gaslighting. Like, his entire interview with Kyle Kalinske is an exercise in gaslighting. Like, it truly is. That the way, and that's all Peterson has ever done, right? Like, the whole, like, clean up your room and look at yourself and all this kind of stuff. Like, oh yeah, so you're the problem, right? Certainly not the gigantic structural inequality. Certainly not, like, you know, the systemic racism that exists in the society. Certainly none of that. No, the real problem is that you didn't pick your socks up off the floor. Like, that's the real problem, right? It's insane. Yeah, and just saw a video that says Charlie Kirk says the U.S. should be a theocracy. Yeah, well, that's what it is essentially already that. Like, given the configuration of the Supreme Court, given the inability or the unwillingness of the Democratic Party to actually do anything, that means that the only viable structure that remains is the Republican Party, which is definitely going to sweep into power. And it's essentially being run by Christian fundamentalists. Like, straight up, like, hard right Christian fascists. And, like, Donald Trump, who is going to become the president again, like, his allegiance with them, and his alliance with them, rather, is, like, he's not going to stand in their way. He's going to let them do what they want to do. And then after him, right, should he actually, like, bow out instead of, like, a coup or something, like, the guy that follows Trump is going to be, like, a true believer, right? And this next term with Trump, like, the first Trump term was chaotic. And it was chaotic because it was just like, who's this Trump guy? Oh my God. And he's trying to, like, build bridges and all this kind of stuff. Well, now the next time he goes into power, he's going to have allies. Like, people who are actually, like, Trump. Like, people who actually are in the system. Like Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Major Tyler Green, right? Like, these people are going to go along with what Trump says and what he thinks. And Trump's alliance with the Christian fascist right is going to be really intense. MAGA, make America great. Yep, revenge of the Trump. Yep. There's another far right winger making rounds on social media, getting attention. Andrew Tate. Oh yeah, I've seen this guy, Andrew Tate. Yeah, he's more of a he's dealing very explicitly in the, like, relationship between men and women. Like, Andrew Tate is this guy who is essentially a chauvinist, who views the relationship between men and women as pretty much explicitly dominant, like that men should dominate women, right? Yeah, and that women want to be dominated, right? Like that. And he's very explicit about it. I actually, like, that's the thing that I actually like about Andrew Tate, is he's not pretending to be something else. Like, he is as he is, right? He's just a repugnant chauvinist, and believes that he believes that wealth is like might makes right. Wealth is good, right? If you've got money, you've got power, and if you've got power, then you're worth something, and that's what gives you merit. But he's not. No, I agree with you. I think Trem is being serious, and but at the same time, like there's something kind of nice about just like he's not trying to pretend. You know what I mean? Like he is what he is, and it's scary that he exists, and it's scary that he's built a following and will build a following, absolutely, because of how repugnant his views are. But he's not trying to bullshit anybody. You know? I think that's what is so interesting about him. And what gives, like, I've been saying this whole time that, like, the society is going to become more fascist. The society is going to become more fascist. Right? And explicitly so. And men like Andrew Tate, well, there they are. Right? What's wrong with fundamentalist Christian? Well, fundamentalist anything is going to get you in trouble, dude. Like, fundamentalist anything is going to get you in trouble. Like, because if you're a fundamentalist Christian, well, that means that you can't have a relationship with a Muslim, right? You have to view a Muslim or a Jew or a Buddhist or pick any other religion. You have to view them as lesser than you. You have to, if you're a fundamentalist. Like, and if you don't, then you're not a fundamentalist, right? That's yeah, other people exist, right? That's the problem. And so the issue is fundamentalism itself, right? And you can see there is such a thing as like a secular fundamentalist. There is such a thing as an atheist fundamentalist. These things exist because fundamentalism is like to believe that this is true and it can never be assailed is itself a failing. And yeah, but like Tate, oof, no, bye bye. I don't need a just fucking racist in here, dude. Like I don't need it. Bye bye. Did I ban you? You should be banned. Yeah, bye-bye. We don't need you. Get out of here, loser. It's just like a total loser. But that kind of attitude and that kind of person, right? A loser like this is gonna be normal, right? It's just gonna become normalized, right? If not celebrated, right? Like we're gonna see more and more of this. A guy like Andrew Tate, for example. Because here's the issue, right? Is that because capitalism rewards losers like this, because capitalism rewards people who are psychotic and who are despicable and who destroy everybody around them, right? And you can see this in every billionaire's story is a story of just a despicable desperation to destroy everyone around them for personal gain and personal profit, right? And especially if you're a loser like Trem, who like denies the genocide or doesn't care about the genocide. I think that's a big part of it, right? But like even if he has read a history book, like a guy like Trem doesn't give a shit about black people. He doesn't give a shit about Africans. He doesn't give a shit about non-whites, right? Like he probably views himself as a superior race, and so because of the natural inherent superiority that he has, that self-justifies itself. So what if we committed a genocide? We're better than they are, right? And so it's self-reinforcing. And he doesn't care that it's completely, completely despicable. And the big reason why they don't care that it's despicable is that they face no consequences whatsoever. It doesn't matter to them, right? Like think about a guy like Andrew Tate. Like the guy's got a lot of money. It was an 8 today, Mark. Good to see you, bud. Good to see you. I'm with you, though. I was rooting for the 7 today, but it was an 8. And what did Trem do? Just like overt racism. Like, just let's take a look. View the deleted message. Okay. They can have their homeland while I keep my American homeland. Bye bye. We don't need it. Like, we don't need to. Yeah, just be a Nazi, right? Yeah, but like a guy like Andrew Tate, right? Like a lot of these people, like Jordan Peterson, like what's Jordan Peterson's big seethe? Like, what's he seething about, right? That he's had to face consequences, right? And these rich white psychos are so used to not facing consequences for their actions that when they have to face consequences, when there is a backlash to them being enormous bigots and racists, they get mad about it because they're so used to not facing consequences. They're like children. Like, Andrew Tate is like very straightforwardly a child, right? Like, he doesn't care about anyone but himself. He brags about how little he cares about anyone but himself. Like, and that type of person is just going to exist in the society, and there's very little to be done about it because the capitalism rewards that kind of behavior, right? That's all. Like, so get used to it, because it's just the tip of the spear. We're going to see a lot more of these guys. Like, we're going to see a lot more of these guys. And especially now in like a post-Trump era, like, it's no longer like gauche to act this way, right? There was a kind of a period of time where it was a bit like, it was a bit, not, what's passé isn't the right word, but like, if you acted this way in like a public sense, you would be ostracized and people would be like, about it. But now they don't care. It doesn't matter. They don't face any consequences, right? And so they can do this and they can act in this kind of way and just be rapacious, psychotic racists and just gross, right? Come in and just casually say like, yeah, we should segregate the species, right? Like, it's despicable. But it's going to be normal, right? Get ready for it. And, like, we're not going to be able to protect ourselves from it. So we shouldn't, really. Like, we're not going to be able to isolate from it. Because it's going to become, like, the mainstream culture. I think that's the thing that I think is going to shock the world the most. That what America is going to start pumping out from its mainstream Hollywood level film apparatus and its propaganda, what it's going to start pumping out is explicit fascist propaganda. Like, and it's going to be explicit. Like, it's not going to sugarcoat it. Like we're talking about films where like black people are subspecies explicitly. We're talking about stuff where obvious like neo-Nazi fascists are viewed as the protagonists. Like, it's not going to be subtle. I think that's the thing I'm really trying to drive at, is that you can find that kind of interpretation in a lot of American media already. I make the argument that every Marvel movie is essentially fascist propaganda at its heart, but it's a bit interpretive. You kind of have to dig for it a little bit, right? But it's not going to be like that in the future, right? And in the not too distant future, like, the media that's going to start coming out is going to be explicitly fascist, and I feel distraught. I mean, that's what we're here for, isn't it? To face it together, isn't that right? Right? And I mean, maybe it won't. Maybe it won't. Maybe we'll get lucky. Or maybe when it starts happening, there'll be enough people who think the way that you think, Anemone, and are just like, fuck this. That's total bullshit. But the truth is that who gets movies made? Like, why do people make movies? So that people will give them money. And the only people who are going to have money in the future are the people who are on the side of who? The fascists. And so you're going to have like a little fascist kind of circle jerk, right? Where media is going to get made for fascists. That's just going to be normal. So keep telling people about me. Keep driving people in this direction, right? I feel like this is something that I gotta talk about more, right? Because people are not going to know what to make of it when it starts to happen. They're not going to know what to do. And eventually there'll just come a point where the strategy of withdrawal, which is what we're doing now, we're withdrawing from the society, is no longer going to work. Have a good one, Ligandese. John, do you think what happened in Sri Lanka, people surrounding the halls of power, will happen in Ottawa? I mean, the Freedom Convoy guys are trying. They're trying their hardest. But, like, the society's not there. It's a different thing what happened in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka had, like, a Maoist movement that really gained a lot of steam very quickly. And the Sri Lankan people really realized, like, very, very quickly that, we outnumber these guys by a lot. Like, we literally could just walk over there and it'd be over, right? And things haven't gotten... Okay, I gotta take a quick break, guys. I'm so sorry. I don't have the video or anything prepared. Give me 1 second. Gotta pee. Gotta pee. Gotta pee. Sorry about that, guys. Do I have actual evidence of this Maoist movement? I have. I'll dig into that a little bit more for you, bud. I've definitely seen. There was several months ago. There was a fairly large Maoist protest that was in Sri Lanka, right? And but like, things haven't gotten so bad here yet. There's still kind of a, like, people simply don't want to admit that what we have is a pretend political system. That there was a corporate coup, right? It was a corporate coup that happened. And the corporate coup will not permit an electoral solution. And should an electoral solution begin to manifest itself, the oligarchy will just dismantle the democratic system. Like, that is where we are at, right? And by all means, right, support people electorally, right? The communists and all of this. But if you genuinely are sitting there saying, we just got to vote harder, like that's all it comes down to, is just voting, it's over. Like, it's a lost game, without a doubt. And yeah, that's exactly right. We do need a kind of a major movement. We need to take over streets. We need to take over infrastructure. The Freedom Convoy guys are showing us how seriously the political system responds to it. Right? Like, we do have them to thank for that. That, like, they have shown us very clearly that if, like, we shut down bridges, if we shut down infrastructure, the political system has to respond to it. We can grind down the economy. We can grind down the gears of capital just by occupying a bridge, just by occupying infrastructure. Just by taking over the 401. Like, it works that way, right? The Freedom Convoy people showed it to us very, very plainly. For the sake of my channel, I have to address this comment of arm the working class. We here at the Canadian Commie do not espouse the violent overthrow or a violent coup. We are a peaceful movement fighting for peaceful protest. and the prolonged expression of peaceful protest through the peaceful interaction of peaceful. Mainly, and it is worth saying that I don't think an armed insurrection would work. Like, if January 6th was successful, it would destroy America. Basically overnight. Like, if the January 6th insurrectionists had have actually gotten into the White House, taken it over, and started, like, decreeing laws and rewriting the Constitution through violent force, that would have been the end of the country, right? Like, it would have completely divided things up. No one would have gone along with it. Like, even the people who would be ostensibly, like, sympathetic, I think, to them, the states wouldn't have gone along with it. So, like, and I feel like the same is true of here in Canada. That if, like, we managed to organize a communist group, and let's say we got like 1,000 people, and we went into the Parliament building, we took it over, like, it would destroy the country. Yep, Monday, August 1st, Bloor and Bedford in Toronto, John Tory's estate, peaceful protest. That's right. August 1st, Bloor and Bedford, 4 p.m. Yeah. John, do you remember Storm Area 51, right? It got taken over by capitalists and turned into a concert. Well, I don't know. I never cared about that. Like, it was an oddity to me. Like, I was just like, oh yeah, okay, Storm Area 51, who cares? Like, I don't know what anybody expected to uncover there. Like, what were they thinking it was going to do? Like, what were they thinking was going to happen? I really think that was just sort of like boredom more than anything. I think even the people that were involved in it didn't expect it to result in anything serious. I mean, people understood that they can't stop all of us. Yeah. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, if we all got together and just showed up, like, that's why the climate change protests that happened here in Toronto were so threatening, right? Like, our government really changed their tune, like, really quickly in regards to how they talked about climate change when those protests happened. Because it was undeniable. Like, if the political, or if the zeitgeist will of the populace had have been, we should march down to City Hall and take it over, that's exactly what would have happened. And there's like, the police are well armed, they're well prepared, right? If 1 million people show up somewhere, if 100,000 people show up somewhere, you can't control that. You can't control that. You don't, like, unless you're literally doing, like, aerial bombardments, unless you're literally clearing the place out with, like, high level ordnance, like, which would delegitimize literally any government, you are going to overwhelm them. It's just the truth. You are going to overwhelm them. There's also a Tim Hortons at Bloor and Bedford, so you can also grab a drink while protesting. What, DM, do you have shares in Tim Hortons? To show the undeniable power of Nurata running. Thanks, Generation Y Me. Thanks, bud. Nope. In my view, what's happening here in Canada is that things haven't gotten bad enough. Like, things haven't gotten bad enough. And that we still have this deluded liberal class that believes that there is such a thing as a moderate. That refuses to acknowledge the actual structure of the society and refuses to acknowledge the corporate coup, and pretends as though Anemone, correcting my Naruto. What did I say? Naruto? I don't even remember. Naruto. Isn't that what I said? I didn't really like Naruto. I gotta be honest. Major diversion. Juxtapose to that, right? We need to surround the halls of power and take things over. Naruto. Like RuPaul. Naruto. Okay. Now I know. I just never got into Naruto. I was like, I just like didn't like him. I'm gonna be straightforward. I've seen literally one episode of this. Nah, Naruto is lame. I don't know, dude. It seems to be one of the like seminal anime. Naruto seems to be one of the like there are anime that exist above all other anime, right? Okay, good. There's like nobody in the chat that's like, Naruto is my boss. Naruto's my guy. I'm just wait. Someone's gonna come in and just be like, John, you didn't like Naruto. I can't support you. You're no leftist. It's like this is the thing. This is the thing that finally divides us all together. All right. From The Independent, YouTube, don't ban me for reporting on what The Independent has written. Ukraine plans million-strong army to retake south from China. Give us the tools, we will finish the job, says Oleksiy Reznikov in reference to Winston Churchill. Hey, Barnabas, how you doing, bud? Ukraine is planning to arm a million-strong force with Western-supplied weapons as it seeks to retake southern territories seized by Russia, Kiev's defense minister has claimed. President Vladimir Zelensky has told Ukraine's military to retake coastal areas vital to the country's economy. Oleksiy Reznikov said Kiev's forces continue to engage in fierce fighting over control of the eastern Donbass region. In a public appeal for Ukraine's allies to expedite weapons shipments, Mr. Reznikov warned that each day we're waiting for howitzers, we can lose 100 soldiers. Channeling Winston Churchill as he added, give us the tools, we will finish the job. Suggesting that NATO had initially underestimated Kiev's determination and overestimated Russia's strength, the minister said he believed that Western countries were stepping up arms supplies now because Ukrainians had proved they could fight. I tried to explain that after 8 years of hybrid war, we have more than 400,000 veterans plus their relatives in different parts of the world, he told The Times. Workers from Poland to Portugal decided to return to Ukraine to defend their countries. We have approximately 700,000 in the armed forces, and when you add the National Guard, police, border guard, we are around 1 million strong, added Mr. Reznikov, a former soldier in the Soviet airborne forces who assumed his current post last November. Despite reports that Western leaders have advised Ukraine not to attempt a major counteroffensive yet, Mr. Reznikov said that politically it's very necessary for our country to retake parts of the south, which were captured swiftly at the outset of Vladimir Putin's war using troops from annexed Crimea. The president has given the order to the supreme military chief to draw up plans. After that, the general staff are doing their homework and say to achieve this goal we need X, Y, and Z, he said. This is my job. I'm writing letters to counterparts in partner countries. The generals talk about why we need this kind of weaponry, and then we get the political decisions. Over the weekend, Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister, Irina Vereshchuk, urged residents in Kherson and Zaporizhzhia to evacuate ahead of a counteroffensive effort, which she warned would be a huge battle. But analysis suggests that the defense minister's comments are more of a broad rallying cry than a precise statement of intent, according to the BBC. It's not 1 million-strong force that will be conducting a counterattack, Dr. Jack Watling, senior research fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, told the broadcaster. Normally, you would want operational surprise when you launch a counterattack, so announcing it publicly is partially about forcing the Russians to have to commit resources more widely to guard against this threat. Ukraine recently withdrew from its last major strongholds in Luhansk, the cities in Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. I'm going to say yes. In what Mr. Reznikov claimed were tactical losses necessary to save lives rather than strategic defeats. His remarks echoed those by the Ukrainian military that the withdrawal from Lysychansk earlier this month have been in order to preserve the lives of Ukrainian defenders, with Mr. Zelensky later vowing Ukraine will return thanks to our tactics, thanks to the increase in the supply of modern weapons. On Sunday night, Mr. Zelensky dismissed suggestions of an operational pause by Moscow following its capture of the two cities, as an onslaught of Russian strikes were alleged to have killed dozens of civilians in the country's east and south. Ukraine's National Police Force also announced that it was opening a criminal investigation into the alleged destruction of hundreds of hectares of crops and granaries in the southern Kherson region, as Russia appears to be striking repeated hammer blows at a key pillar of the Ukrainian economy. Large-scale fires are said to be taking place every day, with residents allegedly being stopped from extinguishing them by Russian forces. I love this, allegedly. Lots of allegedlys in the alleged destruction, right? They're setting us up for another, like, look, they did a famine. Look, it's another Holodomor, right? They're doing it. They're doing it. What are you guys saying? He was like, okay, but I didn't really like the message behind it, how the violence only creates more violence. Yeah. Oh no, 1 million actually less unmotivated guys with 10,000 guns and 1 meg each and no food. Yeah. I'd like to see Ukraine stand this long without NATO supplies. I mean, well, and how are you going to get these supplies to this front line, you know? That's what I keep asking. Yet proved they can fight after they lost Lugansk. Yeah. I mean, Ukraine has yet to show that they can launch a successful offensive attack, right? Like that to me is the true nature of this conflict, that Ukraine has been unable to successfully push back against the Russians. And so this idea of a counteroffensive or a counterattack is absolutely crucial to their narrative. Like, the Ukrainians do need to point at something and say we won, right? It's no longer enough to say we held them to a standstill, because it's simply not true. They haven't been holding the Russians to a standstill. The Russians have been pushing the Ukrainians out of all kinds of places, right? And they've got nothing to point to and say this was a success. And until they actually get something where they can say this was a success, like it looks like it's bleeding, right? It's just a bleed out. Have you seen stories about Ukrainian refugees already struggling to survive in Canada? Yeah. These Ukrainian refugees are coming over and they're going like, oh God, I can't believe things are so expensive and the wages are so low. Like, I've worked in food services for a long time, and anytime like Australians come over or anybody from Europe, right? They come over and they're like, wow, the minimum wage is so low. That's like the first thing they say. Like, yeah, we know. And what have we been doing the whole time? Begging for scraps. Just being like, please, sir, can I please just survive? I'll sell my whole life away to you. I'll give everything I have and everything I am, but can I please just have a room? Like, we're a pathetic people. What is taking Russia so long to get to the Donetsk? The shelling. Like, the shelling is real. Like, it's a fight. And most of the Ukrainian military is in the east of Ukraine right now, right? So, like, the fighting forces are in the east. And I mean, the taking over the city of Lugansk was a big deal. Like, that was a big push. I hear from Brian Berletic at the New Atlas that you need at least 5-to-1 ratio to take a place from an army. Yeah, it's an interesting moment. Like, if you're just interested in like military tactics and military warfare, because the Russians have actually been operating at under manpower. Like, the number I've been hearing is a 3-to-1 ratio. You want to take over territories, but the Russians are moving in without that kind of troop superiority. And I think it is largely because they have the technology and the they have other benefits. Like they have the communications benefit. Like that they went in and knocked out communications across Ukraine, right? I know, buddy. Hey, buddy, I know. Thank you. Yep, but all over Facebook, it's all over that Ukraine was able to conquer Snake Island, a rock in the middle of the ocean. Yeah. The rivers. Oh, okay. Let's take a look at it. Because I mean, like, Putin's agenda has been very well and clearly stated over and over and over again. We have no indication that he wants to, like, people keep saying to me, no. Hold on. We misspelt it for sure. Like, are you talking about up through here, bud? Like, this is the area that matters. Like, the only reason why, in the initial stage of the war, the Russians moved in across the entire front, right? And they were hoping, I think, to move in and just sort of sweep across and have it be just a decisive end, right? I think he was hoping that the show of military force coming out of Russia, the Ukrainians would look at and just go, okay, like, we don't want to destroy the country. We don't want the country to be destroyed. We will bend the knee, right? Turned out the Ukrainians are fine with having the country be destroyed. So that shifted. So the Russian troops that had come across all the borders were redirected into the primary objective. And the primary objective of all of this is Donetsk and Luhansk, the Donbass region, right? Oh, Elon Musk gave his satellite network to the Ukrainian army so they can communicate. Well, there you go. Yeah, there you go. That counts for something, right? The send another battalion, yeah. So there's a lot of narratives where people are saying, like, well, Putin's just going to sweep. People have even said he's going to go to Lviv, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I doubt it. Like, to me, I think what the Russians are doing is what they have always said that they are going to do, right? Like, this is the thing that I think that we got to understand about how the Russians have been operating this whole time. They have said that they are going to do something, and then they do it, right? And they're not they're not really bullshitting on those lines, it looks like. And so if their intention was to, like, go into Kiev, I think that they would be, like, very upfront about it. I think they would be like, look, we want a treaty, we want something, like, and we're going to go into Kiev if you don't do it, right? But honestly, what they are going to do, no, you don't think they care about taking all of Ukraine? I mean, I don't think that they could, first of all. Like, I really don't. I don't think that they would be successful doing that. I think that would put them into an Afghanistan-style quagmire, right? That if an Afghanistan or an Iraq-style quagmire, which is exactly what they're trying to avoid, right? That what they don't want is to go in, attempt to install a administration in Baghdad to attempt to control all of the area, and then just be in a constant, perpetual, never-ending war, right? That's not really what they want. What they want is they want to secure this territory, right? They want this to become a politically independent area, right? They'll call it politically independent, but much in the way that Belarus is politically independent, but that's fine, right? So this will become its own political independent place. And they can enforce this, right? Like, first of all, they have the support of the populace, right? They have the support of the populace in order to turn this into its own place. The people themselves have already declared independence. They already want to make this into an independent nation, right? And so Russia going in, pushing the Ukrainians out, right? Pushing the Ukrainians out, and then just set up administrative control and just do it, right? And if Russia declares that it is so, and if these people declare that it is so, and if the Russians are going to protect that border, right, and are going to give aid to this place, and essentially treat it much like they treat Belarus, right, then there's not much that Ukraine can do about it unless they actually mount a proper counteroffensive and actually move in, right? So, but that's something that I think the Russians would prefer. Those are lines that I think the Russians would prefer to fight along, right? That the Russians have seized this territory. They've created a line. If the Ukrainians want to get involved and do something militarily, then they have to actually push in, and it's a proper military conflict. And what they're trying to avoid is this. They're trying to avoid this quagmire of just tons of different groups. You never know who's anything. You don't know where to put resources. You don't know what you're doing most of the time. And then the second you leave, the whole thing collapses, right? Like, the long-term goal for the Russians is to get these guys set up, give them enough of a military force so that the Russians can withdraw their forces, and then this stands. That's what they want, right? And so by going into Ukraine proper, it's just first of all, it's huge territory. It's a huge amount of territory. And there's a lot of ancillary things that we don't really consider. Like, this is a lot of farmland. And if they start rolling into this territory, then you will get a famine. Like, you will get a famine, right? And they're already trying to set up the famine narrative, right? They're already trying to do that. We're definitely going to get a Holodomor 2.0 out of this. Like, that narrative is coming, for sure, 100%, right? And so why set yourself up for it, you know? And what of the Northeast? You're talking about this territory? So this territory is interesting because Ukrainian forces have been shelling into Russia from this spot right here. And what, because at the end of the day, like, what the Russians want, and what Putin wants certainly, is to turn this into a political quagmire. This whole idea that this whole thing is operating by one administration and one administrative body that has become obviously corrupted can control all of this territory. No, like the Russians want to break it up. They want it to look more like this, right? They want it to look like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus. Like, this is what they want. They want it to be a bunch of little territories that is harder to negotiate and harder to deal with, for sure. Like, for sure. And there are some reports that I have seen, and it's so difficult to tell what's actually happening because there's so many different disparate voices. But there is something of a consensus that, like, this place has become ungovernable. Like, it's not it's turning into a total shit show, right? And it's going to continue being like a complete and total shit show, right? And like the stability, the region has become destabilized, right? Like it's chaos, right? And of course it is. It's war. So I do think that the Russians are essentially sticking to their game plan. That if their plan is to push out and beyond, they got to be kind of careful with that. Like, they gotta know why they're doing that, and it's like they don't want this to spiral into something, right? They want clear operational gains. That's really what they want, because this could turn into like a quagmire that they'll be involved in for 100 years. Like, it really could be that way, and they need something to show for it. And this becoming its own independent state is definitely that thing, right? It's definitely that thing. And then when you zoom out on the world stage, I actually have a really great article. Where was it? Yeah. This is a video. I'm not going to show it, of course. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell admits to losing the propaganda battle, as West's efforts to ostracize Russia have only shed more light on the true nature of its democratic values. Like, when you actually zoom it out and you look at what's going on the world stage, right? So you've got the imperial core, which is the United States, Canada, and Europe. And there's a consensus, for the most part, in there that this was an unprovoked war of aggression, right? That's the NATO line, right? This was an unprovoked war of aggression. Justin Trudeau calls it that. Chrystia Freeland calls it that. Joe Biden calls it that. The Boris Johnson did before he resigned. The new guy will, right? All of these, Macron did, like all the German chancellor did. Like, they're all saying that, right? But it's obviously false. Like, it's extremely falsifiable, right? And most of the rest of the world, Russia, China, certainly Russia, obviously, China, India, right? The Middle East, the Middle East has no reason to go along with this. Huge sections of Africa. Africa is actually much more split up. Like, Africa has never been like one entity, right? And some people go one way, some people go another way. And it's largely based on economic ties. So there are a bunch of African nations that are very tied to France, just neo-colonial economic ties, that are basically going along with the NATO line for obvious reasons. But all of South America is basically like, yeah, this looks like a NATO op along the lines of Libya, right? Like, and for the global South, you know, for the victims of imperial capitalism, right? For the victims of neocolonialism, right? They can see it pretty clearly. Like, this looks like another, they couped the government and then started attacking when Russia got involved, right? Like, it's very straightforward for them. It's Westerners who have the trouble swallowing the pill, right? Because Westerners don't want to look at places like Libya. They don't want to know things about Kosovo or Serbia, right? They don't want to really like, most people will like at least somewhat admit that Iraq was a blunder, right? Instead of like the moral abhorrence that it actually is, and that Afghanistan was a failure. But like, for whatever reason, because everybody's white, let's call it for what it is, right? The Ukrainians are white, the Russians are white, and so nobody wants to believe that the United States. Well, if the United States goes and destroys a bunch of brown people, that's fine, but these are white people, right? Nobody actually wants to admit that that's what's happening. But it's the same fucking story, right? Like, I've said it over and over again. Like, United States coups a government, starts a war. What's that sound like? Oh, is that literally every place you've ever seen? Like, is that literally all of South America, Africa, the Middle East, right? Like, it's such a common story for the United States that it's astounding that most people don't just immediately go like, oh yeah, so the United States couped the government and started a war. Because that's what they always do. Like, it really shows you, like, white blindness. I really think that's what it is. Like, it's just white blindness. That, like, everybody involved, like, this is a war between white nations and white people, and so there's just like a white blindness. That and if Ukraine was instead like Algeria, white people wouldn't care at all. They just wouldn't care. They just wouldn't, like, nobody cares about Libya. Like, none of the people here in Canada give a shit about Libya at all. They don't care, right? Who gives a fuck if the United States went in there, murdered Gaddafi, turned it into a slave state? Who gives a fuck? They're not white. Doesn't matter, right? And so obviously the imperial core is losing the propaganda battle because you have non-white nations looking at what this psychopathic nation is doing again and saying, yeah. And if the Americans try to pretend like that's not what they did, it just makes them look worse. And they have no recourse. Like, this is the big thing, I think, for the United States and Europe ostensibly, is that there's no comeback for them. They don't have like another thing that they can say. There's no other card that they can play. They can't go, well, actually, and like come over the top with something, right? The veil has been pierced. Everyone sees it. It's as clear as it can be. Like it can't be laid out more clearly. It literally cannot be laid out more clearly than it is. And more and more and more people, especially like you think China, India, certainly Russia, right, are just looking at the United States as this massive, enormous liability. That they're like, well, we have done business with you in the past out of necessity because you were the big dog on campus. But is that true anymore? How seriously do we need to take you outside of your crazed military adventurism? Right? How seriously do we need to take you outside of this, like, madness that you obviously have? If they have the power, they should go up to the river, but that's in a perfect world. I mean, the Russians certainly know what's going on more operationally on the ground than we do. And that's their stated objective. They did take this city right here. They took this. This was considered like a really big... Excuse me, man. Oh, goodness. This was considered a really big moment. And of course, the West like doesn't really report on it anymore. Because, like, this is, like, a major crossing, right? That, like, where's the next major crossing? And we know that this area is taken over, right? Mariupol fell, right? So, like, this whole area is in Russian territory and Russian control. So the Russians really do have the river, right? And it's just Dnipro. The line is essentially, yeah, it's essentially Dnipro up to Kharkov. And then there's fighting here. And I've seen pretty credible reports that's showing the Russians have actually finally managed to get a surround off on this, which they've been trying to do all along. But propaganda on all sides, so it can't. That's speculative more than anything. Hopefully, the Russians are aware that the West wants this to be a quagmire too. So just make sure you're not giving the West what they want. Yeah, and that's why I say I think the Russians are going to stick with taking the territory they can get. Right, and once they've taken the territory, draw the line, and say, this is this territory now. We've got it. The people who are here are our allies. We're working together. We consider anybody who's taking up arms in this area against us to be terrorists. Like, I think it's a better strategy for them. For sure. Because, like, if they attempt to get into this territory, now you're talking about, like, remember, like, this over here was very, like, anti-this. Like, these two sides of the country are at odds with one another. And so Russia being in this area means that they are amongst friends. They will be viewed as liberators. They will be seen as allies. That most people in this area were voting for Yanukovych, right? That they're all very pro-Russia, right? That they're happy that the fascist laws that were being inflicted on them by the coup government are being thrown off and all this. If Russia moves into this area, well, now they're oppressing a group of people who supported Yanukovych's opposition, and who are anti-Russia, and who are pro-NATO, and who are trying to, and who want to be part of the EU, right? Like, it's a very different ball of wax. Like, it's just a completely different situation, right? Like, here a Russian can walk down the street, like a Russian military man will walk down the street, and most of the people he'll meet will be pro-Russia, wave at you, hey, thanks for coming. Exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. So, like, stability, total fucking quagmire. I just think it would be a disastrous error for them to move into the East. Just a disastrous error. I guess Ukraine shelling Donbass in 2014 does not count. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's just it. That's the strategy. That's the Western strategy. Just do not talk about the Donbass war. Don't talk about it. Even though that's what this is. Right? I call this the Donbass war. Right? I don't call it the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. I don't call it the Ukrainian war. I call it the Donbass war because that's what it is. Right? That's how this started. That there was a coup and they came over and they started a war in the Donbass which drew Russia in. That's what happened. But just don't talk about it. That's the Western strategy. So, and once you accept that strategy as a Western propagandist, you can say a lot of shit. You can admit a lot, right? But as long as you don't talk about the Donbass war, right? Then you can pretend like it's an unprovoked war, right? The liberal world order's attack on Russia is what I think it should be named. Yeah, I mean, what's so crazy to me about all of this? And it is crazy. Like, I just think it's crazy that, like, why not just let Russia into NATO? You know? Like, I think about this all the time. Like, why not just, like, when you've got the Soviet Union has collapsed, Khrushchev and then Yeltsin and Gorbachev, right? You've got all these guys. And then finally Putin, right? And Putin essentially is like in that kind of crew, right? Like he looks like he's pro-Western. He used to be part of the G7. He used to be called the G8, right? Like he used to be involved in all of that, and applied for membership into NATO. And it's just like, why? Why did they say no? What was the logic here, right? Is it really as simple as, no, you're Eurasian, like you're Mongols? Is it really that simple? Because I gotta tell you, if I'm like Germany and France and the UK and the Soviet Union's collapsed and we've got a neoliberal order here, right, that's aligned pretty closely with the neoliberal order here, and we're reliant on Russia for gas, and all that kind of stuff is happening. And then they're like, hey, how about instead of being antagonistic to one another, we actually buddy up, and then this can create like a whole northern alliance here that can help to check and challenge the rising power of the South. And so you really do have like a true north-south divide, right? But instead of that, they reject it. And so now instead of it being like a north-south divide, you've got like, it's more like this now, right? So it's like this, like, it's called the North, but I mean, Russia's in the North. So it's like this little weird, like, still kind of northern. It's just like, I don't know why they rejected Russia for being involved in NATO. Like, what was that logic? It just seems so short-sighted. Yeah, actually, there's some people at the beginning of the war that was reported flat out said it's a white country and a developed country. Oh yeah, I love those guys. The people were like, it's so hard to believe that this would happen in a civilized country. It's so hard to believe that a proper country full of proper people who are so who are so normal looking, and who exist completely as civilized people could devolve into such utter barbarism that you would expect to see in other, non-white countries. Even though, let's be fucking straight, the history of Europe, i.e. the white people, right? The history of Europe is warfare. Like, the history of Europe is high-level warfare. White people fight. White people fight more than anybody else. We love to fight. Like, we love to fight, and we love to torture. We love fighting and we love torture. There's just no two ways about it. Like, the most amount of war, right? Like, we love creating new technologies for war. It's how we became so dominant. It's how we were able to take this whole fucking continent over. Because we showed up with weapons that these guys hadn't even thought of. And not to mention the fucking plague, right, that we brought in. We love the plague. Nope. Seeing some Z's. One guy, Charlie D'Agato, whatever. John Bolton said on CNN in defense of 45 that an idiot couldn't organize a coup. I've coup many times. It's a lot of work in other countries, of course. Yeah. This is in defense of what? 45? I don't know what it's in defense of, but like, yeah, John Bolton's a fucking monster. Like, like, I wish that hell did exist, just so that John Bolton would definitely go there. Because, like, evil exists. It looks like John Bolton. Like, for sure. I don't know who this is. Charlie D'Agato. Who is this? The eastern side is where the Banderites had no problem using human shields. Yeah, just as a fan. John Bolton said on CNN, a defense of Trump. Oh, I see. He's literally like, Trump couldn't have done that coup. He's too stupid. It's tough to do a coup. Believe me, I know. I've done many a coup. Just casually admitting, straight up casually admitting to war crimes. Like, that's fucking John Bolton, eh? Like, how do you know your society is completely corrupt and that the powerful know that they are never going to face consequences? How do you know that the internal coup has been completed by the corporate power state? A man like John Bolton can just go on CNN, casually admit to just war crimes. Yep, I've done some war crimes in my time. Let me tell you about the time where I did a war crime in Libya. That was a good war crime, that one. Yep. Like, just casually admitting to it. You know? Like, it's no problem. And just saying it just in regards to, like, Donald Trump could never do a coup. Believe me, I've done many a coup. I remember back in 1964 we did a coup. Yeah, back in Laos, we were cooing government after government after government. And, of course, it was illegal. Certainly it was illegal, but who makes these rules anyway? Fucking Bolton. They said no, I think, because I knew Russia had a lot of oil and natural gas could supply Europe. It would make Europe a stronger economy, so America couldn't express control over Europe. Yeah, I mean, I think you are onto something there, generation, which is that, like, it does smack of that kind of, like, jealous boyfriend sort of attitude. That, like, the United States has control of Europe, and here comes Russia, right? Their Cold War adversary, being like, hey, everybody, I too could be part of the NATO. And I don't know why I'm using that accent. That's not how Russians sound, but I just think it's funny. And the United States is basically just going, no, Europe is mine, bitch. Step off. I think it is that. I think you're right. That it really is just like Russia coming over and being like, I too could be involved in a military alliance to help world progress forward toward, let us say, freedom. And the United States just like, no, I own Europe. Europe is my bitch. You go back to your tunnel, you weird little Russian bear. And the Russians are just like, oh, I thought we were friends. We were buddies. Anyway, that's my little skit. I always imagine the United States. I have this constant urge in the back of my mind, and I've just never actually done it, to write a script where I personify all of these countries, and it starts post-World War II. So, like, right after World War II, all of the countries or the people are in, like, a party sense. And that the United States is played by, like, like if you think, like, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, you're in the right territory. And her name is Erica, right? And she's constantly saying, I'm Erica, right? Constantly. I'm Erica. I'm Erica. I'm Erica. I'm Erica. Constantly. And she's a psycho. She's just like a total psycho. Where, like, she's constantly Yeah. Yes, Valley Girl all the way. Just like, oh my god, I can't believe you would do that. Like, constantly just like rolling her eyes and just being like, oh my god. Why can't these people just cooperate? All the time. All the time, right? And like, and she's constantly like she's schizophrenic for sure, because she's constantly waffling between like presenting herself as actually quite rational and quite like formal in certain situations, and then sometimes she's literally got like the cowboy hat on, shooting the guns and all of that, because the United States is a schizophrenic nation. Like, just like the think about like like, if you're like the Queen of England or fucking Putin, if you're like Putin, what have you seen happen in the United States over your tenure? You saw it go from George Bush. Hey, we're gonna go in there and you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you ain't gonna get fooled again. We're gonna go into Iraq and we're gonna get those terrorists. Right? It went from that to, well, here we are, America. We are the greatest nation on the planet, and we need to absolutely destroy Libya. That's important for us to do, right? To Trump, we're gonna go in there, make some deals. We're gonna drain the swamp. We're gonna do the like. This is and then now it's gonna. Well, you know. I think we should probably always remember that America is the greatest country in the world. Like, this looks schizophrenic. Like, if a single person were to act this way, you would just be like, you're crazy. There's like no continuation. There's no continuity. Yeah, let's not forget Kamala's cackling. What about Hillary's? Wait, we came, we saw, he died. Like, okay. Like, these long-standing leaders, like, you think about Putin, you think about Xi Jinping, you think about the Queen of England, right? If you want to use a Western example, right? Like, it's nuts. It looks crazy, right? Historic xenophobia towards Russians is literally the only explanation I see. Yeah. I do think that it is true to say, like, it's like a type of possessiveness, I think, on behalf of the United States. They want Europe. Europe is theirs. Get out of here, Russia. No, excuse me, guys. Sorry. Just a quick note, for those not familiar with downtown Toronto, Bloor and Bedford is also the entranceway for the U of T Toronto track and football field. Oh, great. So we can have a protest, and then we can break into some track and field and football. I knew it was going to happen, Methane. Speaking of crazy, have you heard about Hunter's laptop update? I feel like the Chapo Trap House guys have done the best possible breakdown of that. That if you really want to see if you really want to hear people talk about the Hunter's laptop update, for those who don't know, they've got more on Hunter, right? Hunter Biden, once again, found to be doing coke and getting blowjobs in random places. Like, Hunter Biden is like a total fucking loser. There's just no other way to describe it. Like, here is a guy who straight up just decided very early on that his life was going to be drugs and sex. And that's it. That's all he's doing, right? And like, sure, like good for you, champ, right? Good, great, I guess. But like, he's an international embarrassment. There's no other way to describe it. He's the son of the president, and he's essentially just like a high school burnout dropout that just said like, well, my dad's famous, and wealthy, so I'm just gonna spend my whole life doing a ton of coke and having sex with strippers. And that's his whole life. And it's like, I guess. Like, it's not a bad life, but like, you know, if you're from outside the United States looking in, it's just yet another, like, little, like, another thing to throw into the bin of, like, the United States has gone completely erratic. Like, completely erratic. The United States is just completely unhinged, right? It's just yet another thing to throw into that bucket. Wasn't there also CP on there? I cannot confirm. I cannot confirm. Yeah, but Hunter Biden got a prestigious $1 million position in Ukraine. Yeah, of course. He was going to get a prestigious $1 million position anywhere, right? Like, he's the son of a senator and now a president, right? Like, There is no justice in the world, okay? Men like Hunter Biden have always existed. Literally, just like we talk about the actual parasites in the world. There you go. Literally just born into prestige and privilege and wealth, choosing to just masturbate with it, essentially. Like, that's all it is, right? Like, he's never going to actually attempt to do anything good. He's never actually going to attempt to strive for anything. He's never going to do anything, right? He's this is it for him. Great. Make America great again, right? I think it's interesting that it's been theorized he was doing deals under his dad's name with permission, unofficially. I hear there's audio of Hunter saying his dad is a pedo too. I mean, I feel like at this point in the game, guys, to like, I think you have to be to get to that echelon at this stage. Like, we all know about Jeffrey Epstein. We all know about Ghislaine Maxwell. We all know this shit. Like, we know that nobody is, like, like, Ghislaine Maxwell is doing serious time, right? Probably in a cushy little place, but whatever, right? The amount of time that she was given was actually quite serious. But they're not releasing the names, right? So the people who Ghislaine Maxwell serviced are being protected, right? Like, the system is delegitimized. Like, I genuinely don't think you make it into the upper echelons of this power structure that exists in the United States without being involved somehow in this kind of systemic child rape. I just don't think you get out of it. I just think that it's part of the system now. That if you don't actually go to the child sex parties, and if you don't actually involve yourself in the systemic rape of children, then you don't get to be involved in the power structure. Like, I genuinely think that this is the case. And we have all the evidence in the world to say that that is actually true, right? Donald Trump's name was on the manifests. Bill Clinton's name was on the manifests like 1 billion times. We got fucking Biden is being indicted here. Fucking Hunter. Like, what do we need to see? Like, what do we really need to see? Do we need like the full trial? Well, that's never gonna happen, right? The names are never being released. Like, we've got Prince Andrew, for God's sakes, Bill Gates, for God's sakes. Like, we're never ever going to we're never actually going to get, like, those names may be released 20 years from now when all those guys are dead, right? When the last of them finally kick off, the list will get released. Like, that's how it's gonna go. And like, it's yep. No, it's gross. It's gross as gross can get, right? Hunter also serves as a member of the board of the China-based private equity fund BHR Partners, which he acquired a 10% stake into. Yeah, that's... Yep. Didn't Biden make some comment about love having kids bouncing on his lap? Yep. He made comments about how kids love to touch his legs. They like watching the white hair move up and down, apparently. Yep. Like, what's annoying about this is, like, I think my favorite clip I've seen of somebody talking about it is that there's a UFC fighter. I think he's a champion right now, Israel something or other, and he outright said it. He said it at a press conference. He was like, "Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell went to jail and they haven't released the list. Like, what do you think is happening?" Like, it's we're at a point where this stuff is just well known. Like, we just know, right? Like, if you are the president of the United States, if you are a billionaire, a powerful billionaire of some sort, you're involved in this shit. You just are. Like, and if you don't involve yourself in it, then you don't get the power. It's a devil's bargain. It's a Faustian bargain, without a doubt. And it just shows you the overt perversion of these people, right? That like, while they are simultaneously attempting to maintain this kind of like Christian moral pure image, right? They're fucking pedophiles. It's brutal. Yep. Hunter also walked out of China with $1.5 billion in a fund and earned millions of dollars from the BHR deal. But that's because he's a hard worker, right? He ascended the meritocracy, the meritocracy hierarchy, right? And he works super hard. Like, the whole thing is just a total fraud. Like, the whole fucking thing is a complete and total fraud. And we are at the point now where the people who are defending it should be called frauds. Like, they shouldn't be called, like, oh, we disagree, or we view the world differently, or all of that. They should be called grifters and frauds. Just black and white. No need to sugarcoat it anymore, right? These people are fraudulent. I will never believe in society because of stuff like that. Yeah, until those names all get released and all investigated properly, I can't get past the fact that all our leaders are corrupt. So it's all evil. Yeah. Well, and they're just not. And my position is that until the list is released, they're all guilty. Like, they're all on it. Like, if they won't release the list, then every single one of them are on that list. It's like a Schrodinger's cat kind of situation. Well, then they're all on it. And that's how it should be accepted. It just should be completely normal. Yep. That'll never happen. That's the kind, like I said, right? There will certainly never be a proper investigation. Like, that's never going to happen. The list will eventually come out. I'm sure of it. Like, there's definitely going to be a moment where, like, the list comes out. Because that kind of stuff happens all the time, where there's like a leak, or or eventually time passes enough, and there's some kind of lapse, or there's a switchover in government or something, and so this thing gets pushed out, right? That kind of stuff happens, but that'll be decades from now, right? All that'll be decades from now. Yeah. I can hope something random and unexpected happens. It's true. No, the random and unexpected thing that will happen will be the surrounding of the halls of power. That'll be the random and unexpected thing, right? Like they did here. Yeah, they'd rather put Trump and his family in jail. I mean, that's just good storytelling, dude. Right? Like, the demonization of Donald Trump, in my view, is mainly just been excellent storytelling. Because, like, really, Donald Trump, outside of his, like, outlandish behavior, like, Donald Trump is, like, a normal politician. He's, like, normal. He's not different than these guys. Like, that's, I think, the thing that people don't really want to accept. And maybe now are starting to accept after we've gone through this Biden thing. Like, what's fundamentally the difference between Donald Trump and Biden, right? Or Donald Trump and Obama, for that matter, right? It's just marketing. That's it. Donald Trump was on Twitter, right? He was just shitting stuff out on Twitter and, like, doing all that kind of stuff. But in terms of how he, like, governed, in terms of the legislation he did, in terms of the activity that he got involved in, it's basically the same, right? Like, maybe you could even make the argument that he was less hawkish than Biden. That Biden has done more. Like Biden's done a ton of bombing in Somalia. There's a whole conflict going on here in Ethiopia, right? Like you can make the argument that Biden's done like a lot more work on behalf of the Imperium than Trump. Yeah, it's a good cover my ass for the failure of the system at large. Yep. Blame Trump. The problem is Trump. We got to get rid of Trump and then everything will go back to being great. Yeah, we'll get rid of Trump and then everything will be normal again. Yep. We're seeing what normal means. Majority of Canadians think country is in recession. So majority of Canadians, more than 80% of Canadian respondents said they believe prices will keep going up. 59% say they think Canada is in an economic recession. So like straight up, like our banks and our politicians are well behind the populace, which is always the case. Right? Like this is the reason why the primary form of politicking is protest, not voting. Voting is the last thing that happens. When you get to a point where you are putting votes in a ballot box, and that is what happens, you've already worked it out in the streets. You've already worked it out, if that's what's happening. Voting is the end. It's not the beginning. Bad man. Big bad orange man. Yeah, totally less hawkish than Biden and Clinton, yeah. What about depression? I know I'm sad. Generation, I believe in you, man. I believe in you. This is a crazy kooky time, eh? This is a crazy kooky time. I know I'm trying to keep my depression at bay, I guess is the best way to say it. Like I'm trying to not fall down the depression spiral, trying not to drink as much. I'm trying to stay away from that kind of stuff. I'm doing my best. And this channel is a big help for that, I gotta tell you. Like being able to like not stew so much, right? Not stew so much. I highly recommend everybody do some squats, some push-ups. We should all start working out a little bit more. We should have a workout segment. Just like do 10 squats and cry about it. Unless a true communist is the Prime Minister of Canada, we need to surround the halls of power. I mean, we're never going to see an elected communist. That's not going to happen. That's not what happens. Sometimes I wonder if they just take all these polls to see how far they can push us. Like, what's it matter if people think we're in a recession? It should be reasoned, calculated to tell. Yeah. Like, that is a reason why we're so heavily polled. They want to know what we're thinking, right? They don't want to react to some big, sudden upswell of anger, right? They want to see it coming. Yeah. But I mean, like, what's scary about this is if a country thinks it's in a recession, it will act that way, right? And so people will start to kind of clutch their pearls a little bit more and hang on to stuff a little bit more. Oh, it's time to treat cell phones and the internet like the essential infrastructure they are. Wouldn't that be nice? This is coming from the editorial board. I learned a long time ago that when you see a Globe and Mail article that's coming from the editorial board, that's coming from David Thompson directly. That articles like this are actually David Thompson saying, Ottawa has two choices. It can allow more competition in Canada and make the system more reliable that way, or it can step in and do the job in the absence of a real marketplace. For the safety of Canadians, it can't have it both ways. It's actually like a pretty powerful article to come out of the Globe and Mail, because it's explicitly and straightforwardly anti-Rogers monopoly, right? And Rogers has a monopoly, and it's stupid. Like when the Rogers network when the Rogers network went down, it probably cost the country millions of dollars. It was a huge problem, right? And it's just like we probably shouldn't. And like millions of customers lost their access to 9/11 emergency service because of it. Like literally, the solution that a capitalistic monopoly came up with for how to organize itself was just throw all of those eggs into one basket. Body break the levers of power. Can you imagine? That's amazing. Body break. Hey everybody. Today we're gonna do... Yeah, John's gonna blast trance music while instructing us on a yoga mat on stream. No, dude. If I ever work out in front of you guys, you will see me rage. I rage. It's why I don't play video games in front of you guys. Like when I first started doing this, I thought to myself, like, maybe I'll just continue the stream and I can like play some video games, and if people want to watch me play video games. And then I realized very quickly, like, nah. When I play video games, I don't want people to be around me when I play video games. I'm not interested in that. I'm very like expressive, let's say. And I don't care to involve other people in it. Especially like strangers on the internet. Like you guys are really nice and all, but it's very believable to me that when I'm like in kind of a seething state, someone would ramp that up. I can get really like pushed up. Anyway, I used to work in a third-party call center for Rogers. They wanted us to sign a petition to keep Verizon out of Canada. I refused. I think we should just nationalize it. Like fuck the whole idea of like competition. Like fuck this whole thing. We should nationalize it. We should let rational voices into the conversation. We should organize it, right? And it shouldn't be organized based exclusively on the idea of making money for psychopaths. Like maybe we should look at one another and be like, do you think that we should organize this so that the whole grid can't come down all at once? Yeah, maybe we should have like backups and fail-safes. What do you think? Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't create a system that takes down both the banking system and 911 emergency services and internet communications at the same time. Right? Maybe we shouldn't create a system that can just fucking come down all at once like it did. Right? Like people keep telling me like, oh, it's Chinese cybersecurity. It's we gotta watch out for the Chinese because they got the cyber terrorism. That's what we need to watch for. So while we're watching for this Chinese cyber threats, the definite thing that we should do is allow all of our cybersecurity into the hands of a monopoly that's organized it so that it can be taken down all at once super easily. That's the thing to do. Capitalism! Capitalism! It definitely works. It definitely works. I'm super sure of it this time. The James Webb Space Telescope first image shows the deepest, sharpest view of the universe ever. If you care about that kind of thing, space exploration, James Webb Space Telescope. Very pretty. Just wanted to show it to you guys. Because things are happening. We're looking at space. I wish we would spend more time looking at the bottom of the ocean and learning more about the planet that we live on. But, you know, space. What's out there, right? We got Rogers went down because of a configuration issue. It was self-inflicted. Of course it was. It's all self-inflicted. These guys are assholes. They're total losers. We got to be careful. The Chinese are going to spy on you while you poop. While you poop. That's right. Oh, I just wanted to show this very quickly. Germany criminalizes journalists for exposing Ukrainian war crimes. Isn't that one how Germany's doing that? Super normal thing for Germany to do. Yeah, Canada's housing market offers people both the worst of both worlds. Yeah, I'm sure people will just continue putting up with this as it gets worse. They're certainly not going to swing to the far right. What? Yep, airport delays, economic recession, we're all fucked. Oh, yeah. I can't actually show you the headline because of this stupid paywall, but people from elite backgrounds increasingly becoming the educated elite is the headline, essentially. So basically what we're ending up with is a society where only rich people are ending up becoming like professors. And so if you think our educational facilities are full of out-of-touch losers now, you just wait. You just wait until literally the people who are filling these schools have never worked a job in their life. They have no idea what it is to work for anybody. They have no idea what it is. Like, they literally do not understand the capitalist system that they operate in. Like, and just wait. Like, you think that Jordan Peterson is bad? Just wait. Yep. Polyev gets the cheers. Charest faced with booze at big CPC event. I don't know why anybody thinks this Charest guy is going to win. Like, all the polls and everything is showing that Polyev is the front runner, right? This picture kind of says it all, doesn't it? He's got this big, can't even say goofy grin. This is the thing. Pierre looks good, don't you think? Like, Charest looks just like a dowdy, tired old dude. Like, he's got like kind of like a crazy like Einstein hair thing going on here, right? He's got like the little belly, right? Polyev looks good. Which one of these two guys, if the only thing you knew about these two guys was this photo, which one of these two guys would you be more confident in winning the election? For sure. All the more reason for me to get a PhD. You do it, Generation Y. I mean, they'll give them to anybody. So I might as well give them to you, right? Like, it's as long as you've got the money. That's all it comes down to. It doesn't matter if you're credible or intellectual or smart or any of that kind of stuff. All of that is bullshit. All that matters is, do you have the money? That's it. They'll give it to anybody, so you might as well go get one. I believe in you. You can definitely do it. And then once you get it, you can come in and act all snooty in the chat. And I'll be like, well, Mr. PhD, with his fancy dancy PhD. And that will be how we communicate with one another. Poor Patrick Brown, always getting the bad breaks. Oh yeah, dude, for sure. Like the plaid shirt, the cowboy hat. Absolutely. I'm right there with you, dude. Like, this is a fashion disaster. But he looks like he fits in exactly where he is. Like, he's at the CBC event, but CPC rather. They're at the Canada Stampede barbecue event held in Heritage Park in Calgary. There's people in the foreground that are wearing the outfit he is wearing. He looks like he fits in. Hey Victini, how you doing, bud? Municipal politicians pretend to be nonpartisan to promote apathy, confusion, and to be held accountable, never probably held accountable when they make inconsistent policy decisions in their attempts to retain power and climb. Yeah, you nailed it, dude. Like a white cowboy hat. Yeah, but there's a white cowboy hat there. There's a white cowboy hat there. Look at him. Look how much he's fitting in. Look how much he's fitting in, right? Pierre looks like J.R. Ewing at the Ewing barbecue. And climb to provincial and federal politics. For sure, Victini. No, you've nailed it, dude. Like, our entire system rewards obedience. That's how the system is structured. That when you go to school, you're 5 or 6 years old, you're taught right away, day one, obey or be punished. And as you ascend through grade school and then through high school, obey or be punished. Do what you're told, right? If you do what you're told best, you get better grades. If you don't do what you're told, or if you're incapable of doing what you're told, you get worse grades, right? It's the only thing they're testing for. It's the only thing they're vetting for. They don't actually care about you retaining the knowledge. They don't actually care about you keeping any of it. It's all about just obedience training. And then they take the kids who got the best grades and they end up in universities, right? Or if you have money, you can end up in the universities. And again, it's the same thing. Do what you're told, obey. The more obedient you are, the better you do. The less obedient you are, the worse you get. And then the kids who get the best grades from being obedient, they get to go off and be the best jobs, and they get the best career path. And again, just obeying and doing what they're told. Right? Someone in Calgary yelled commie at Trudeau. Oh my God. I actually need to read Klaus Schwaber's book because people are saying that it's neo-communist. And I'm having a hard time believing that or buying into that idea. But apparently Klaus Schwaber, who, if you don't know who Klaus Schwaber is, he's the head of the forum, the thing that everybody hates, the forum of forum, like the Bilderberg group, but the other one. Chad will get me. And and apparently people are saying that he argues against private property. And that's a communist idea. So they're saying that it's neo-communist. And I'm like, yeah, the WEF, the World Economic Forum. Thanks, Oddity. And so I actually need to find this book and actually read it to see how accurate that is. Because, that would actually explain a little bit of the, Trudeau's a communist. Even though Trudeau's not a fucking communist. I wish Trudeau was a communist. My profs from working class backgrounds were always the coolest. You can tell who the working class profs are, for sure, dude. For sure. Vote Municipal Socialist Alliance in October. Yeah, dude. Vote literally anything other than NDP, Conservative, Liberal, or Green. Literally anything. Vote for shoelaces. Vote anything. Vote for brown paper bags. Just vote for anything. White cowboy hat is so non-spaghetti Western. Yeah, dude. Yeah, the white cowboy hat is not what the, hero of the piece wears. It's what the, casino cowboy wears. Right? When you go into, the saloon scene and there's, people playing cards, there's always one guy that's kind of dressed a little bit fancier, and he's wearing a white cowboy hat. For sure. I'm going to save this one. I'm going to save that one. That one's going to go over there. We already did that one. What's left? Oh, this is just something I saved. So we did it. We went through all of it. Perfect timing. What book are you referencing to? So I can't remember the name of the book offhand, but Klaus Schwaber wrote a book. What's the World Economic Forum. We're at the end here. We can faff about. Although, really, let's be honest. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to click. World Economic Forum, Wikipedia, Klaus Schwab, career, criticism, bibliography. Yeah, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. That's the one. That I feel like is the book I should get my hands on. I should probably read what this guy is writing, you know? He seems to... COVID-19, the Great Reset. Right? The Great Reset. Should probably take this guy a little bit more seriously than I actually do. Honestly. Although... I just feel like people are becoming really, really suspicious of this organization generally. And... him walking around bragging about how he's infiltrating governments isn't helping, right? What a dweeby dork, honestly. Yeah, influences Henry Kissinger. Yeah, big flashing red light. Big fucking flashing red light. It's incredibly frightening stuff. I'm fairly certain they are the prime enemy. No. The system itself is the prime enemy. This is something that we always need to remember. that we always need to remember. It is the system itself that is the prime enemy. That the structure, the system of capital is way too big for a single organization or entity to control. Is Klaus Schwab influential? Certainly. Like, that I don't think you can debate that, right? Just like the Bilderberg Group, right? Like the Bilderberg Group is another one of these, right? It makes sense that politicians and wealthy people and all of that would come together and talk to one another in an attempt to create kind of mutual understandings. So I don't actually view this as scary as a lot of other people, right? Like, it matters, but I end up having a lot of conversations, especially from PPC types, people in the kind of conservative area, who really treat this like it's like, this is the thing, this is it, we gotta do something about this, and I'm just like, you're up here, maybe down here, right? I just don't think. That's fair, Methane. That's a fair thing to say. Sure, you can blame the system, but when a person or small number of them take advantage of others on a scale of billions of people, well, I think you can blame them too. Yeah. Yeah. That's as reasonable a statement as I've ever heard written in chat, for sure. That's really well written, dude. I really like that. But when a person or a small number of them take advantage of others on a scale of billions of people, well, I think you can blame them too. I like that a lot, dude. Yeah, like it certainly is like an organization. It certainly is a influential, right? It's certainly where a lot of different people have like touched base, and it certainly is like an epicenter of sorts. But like, I just think that like people are treating this like it's Spectre, right? Like people are treating this like it's like, we're uncovering the great darkness of the world. This is Voldemort and where he lives and all of that. I'm like, nah. Like, it exists, certainly. It's definitely worthy of attention. Like, I'm not trying to say otherwise. But, like, let's say you mounted some kind of attack against this. Let's say you did it, right? Let's say we got a bunch of people together and we actually, like, let's go crazy. Like, let's go really crazy. Let's say we got a whole bunch of communists together and we surrounded these guys and they were gone somehow, right? Like, let's not get too explicit. I don't want to be banned from YouTube. Please don't ban me, YouTube. Please don't ban me. I'm a peaceful advocate for peace. Thank you. Peace for peace. Peace. And but let's say it happened. Well, another one of these is going to pop up almost instantly, right? Like, powerful people with lots of influence and wealth and money are always going to get together and talk to one another, right? And the nature of their conversation, and that's going to be true whether or not your system is communist or capitalist or any of that. So, like, I just feel like sometimes, especially people who roll into the chat, and maybe I got to get a little bit more accommodating of this because I am trying to build something here, and so I should be less dismissive. But like, I'm just not on that same kind of level, right? Like, I had that like, whoa, Bilderberg, I can't believe it. Rich people talk to each other when I was like 19, like, and now I'm like, yeah, of course, rich people talk to each other. Of course they do. They absolutely should. Not only is it unsurprising that they do, I actually do think that they should. Like, I think I prefer to live in a world where people with high-level apparatus and the ability to, like, control huge mechanizations and sections of the society, I I think I would prefer to live in a world where they get together and talk. Like, I know that they're conspiring against the populace in order to keep us in our place. But can you imagine if they didn't? Like, can you imagine if they didn't talk to one another? It'd be way worse. It'd be way worse. They would be blowing up on each other on accident all the time. They would just accidentally be blowing up on each other because they're so huge. They're just these huge entities that are just waddling around, blustering into the fucking world. They're just doing everything they can to run on like the thinnest possible margin they can get away with. And occasionally the whole thing just comes apart and blows up in their face, right? Can you imagine if they didn't talk to one another? Ugh. But at the same time, I take your point. Like, it's definitely something that you can point at and just be like, look, all of the rich people are getting together and talking to one another. And so I guess that like, there is this, like, Michael Parenti pointed this out, where he said, you know, it's weird. Sometimes people say to me, like, what, Michael, you think people get together and, like, they conspire and they have these conversations to do this stuff, like a conspiracy? And Michael Parenti goes, well, how else do you think they're doing it? Like, what else do you think they're doing it? Yeah, like, you think they're discussing their wives? It's good. No, they're more like the bad guys in Mr. Robot. You know, obviously they're discussing, like, how to maintain their power and their wealth and all of that kind of stuff. But I just don't think, it's just not a surprise to me, I think. You know, I don't know how to talk about this, so I'm not alienating people, because I do think that there are people who look at something like the World Economic Forum or the Bilderberg Group and they are like, oh my God, and I know that the way that I talk about it, and I'm actually, like, being quite genuine, I actually think I would like some advice on this, because I've had a couple of people come through the chat who had this, where they were like, oh my God, can you believe the World Economic Forum? And I start talking about the way that I start talking about it, and I can tell that they're just like, fuck you, you fucking loser, and they leave, right? And that's not what I want, because those people are ostensibly my allies, right? And I would like them to like me, and I think I would like them. Like, I think that they are probably pretty cool people. I just don't, I just think that the dividing line for me is, like, I just think that, like, these organizations are inevitable, and these organizations are, I guess the question that I'm coming to is, like, are they by their very nature dangerous? Like, is it dangerous that the World Economic Forum exists? Is it dangerous that the Bilderberg Group occurs? Is it dangerous? Because I kind of look at it as just like, yeah, it's an inevitability more than anything. Like, I'm more like Jeffrey Epstein's sex island is far more disgraceful to me. That's far more grotesque in my view. I don't think the problem is necessarily even solvable. This is why I want to split off from much of this nonsense, separate as much as I can. I want nothing to do with it. Yeah, good luck with that. And I know I just said that. I was like, yeah, good luck with that. But no, good luck with that. If you figure it out, let me know how you did it, okay? Or take me with you. Take me with you, Bethane. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if something like Squid Game was real. For sure it is, dude. Nah, like, absolutely. Are you kidding me? It'd be so easy to do. Something like Squid Game, it'd be so stupidly easy to do, right? You could for sure do this. And, like, we know, like, here's a fucked up story that we know is real and definitely happened. So, like, Mexican cartels will like, kidnap an entire van or an entire bus full of people, and they'll put on a tournament, and they'll pit the passengers of the bus against each other, and the survivors of the tournament get to live and join the gang. That's straight up how, like, we know that happens. So, and if that's what Mexican cartels are doing, like, and for God's sakes, like think about like the Southern slavers, right? Like, we know, like in Django, like that story where the guy was pitting black people against one another and black slaves had to fight one another. Like, we know, like they did that. That absolutely happened. So absolutely the billionaire class is doing that kind of shit. For sure. It just hasn't like come out yet. It just hasn't like come and like been like, oh yeah, check it out, right? You know? I just imagine disconnected from reality shit like domestic supply of babies. Yeah. Well, they are talking about how like Westerners are getting a bit worried about this population decline narrative, right? Because they know that the declining population of the West is super bad for the white supremacists, for sure, and it is super bad for trying to compete against places like China and India, which have a sharp population advantage. So, no, in the syndicalist model, organizers have to meet and discuss production and logistics. Like, leaders need to talk and organize. Yeah. Did you ever see that Money speech in Network? That movie has some great speeches. I think I know the one you're talking about. Yeah. I think it can be dangerous. Will it be? Time will tell. Yeah. When you read his stuff, it has a lot to do with transhumanism. And that line of thought is difficult at best. Yeah. I find that transhumanism is very fairy tale-ish. Right? Like, I just don't... I think we are as we are. And if we do evolve, it will be very slight and over a long period of time. Like, evolution doesn't happen like one generation to another. Like, and human nature is not yeah, like, it's like those people who are like, humanity needs to evolve to survive to the next. Like, we are as we are. You know? This is humanity. Like, and the idea that we're going to evolve to some new strata and all that kind of stuff, like, yeah, maybe in like 100,000 years, but like, we are as we are, you know? It's almost like Death Planet Dune things. Cambodia, Afghanistan. Yeah. Well, guys, I think we've reached the end of this tonight. I'm so grateful you guys are all here. This was a nice stream. This is a nice stream. Oh, man. It really eases my burdens, you know? And I hope that as you ease my burdens, that I'm easing yours. Yeah, you're right on the money, Victini, for sure, dude. August 1st, 4 p.m., Bloor and Bedford Road. Please show up. I'm trying my damnedest to promote this thing. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes that you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity that you need, that they want you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.